up and say, hey, did you see the
All
guy?
right. We're going to reconvene our meeting, which we started on July 10th. If it's all right with everyone present, I'd like to, since we're reconvening, not starting another meeting, we've already had an invocation and opening board comments, so close out 2 and 3, just an interest of time. So that'll wrap up the board. I want to thank the school board for their summer to be here and meet with us so we can clear up some of these things and get these, this part of the business accomplished. We just felt like we should discuss things and do it as openly as possible with you guys. So, that being said, do you all have any changes or additions you want to put on the agenda?
We do have one addition that we would like to
Okay.
put on there. And we would like to have a discussion of norms for joint meetings. And this is coming at the request of the school board.
Okay.
Norms.
You mean like set times?
Well, norms basically tell us, our norms, how we live, how we interact, how we work, it's a series of norms.
I think the basis behind this was, we're going to cover 1, 2, 3. Someone throws in a 6, 7, 8 on us when no one's prepared.
Okay.
That's what we're talking
All right.
So adding a discussion about technical education.
about. Piggybacking off of something and, so forth and all, that it's not on their agenda.
Okay. Can we add an item about, just going to have a conversation about technical education?
We can, but quite frankly, Dr. Calvert may be able to answer. We did not prepare, but
Understood.
we can take the
I haven't really
question.
prepared in depth, it's just a philosophical conversation. That's all right. If we did.
Yeah, or the philosophical conversation we done Friday. But I do think it's something we all.
Public schools.
Okay. All right. So we need to add, let's make, let's do a 12A for, norms of meetings or work sessions, /work sessions, joint work sessions. Joint work sessions, I guess is how we do that. And 12B for, IT education, is it
No,
technical? Technical education discussion.
Can I ask Madam Chair
Yes.
if number 8 is a clarification on the Ladysmith Elementary School, or was that supposed to be the middle school?
We had put that on there as just find out where we are on the floor request and the map will request at Ladysmith Elementary.
I kind of thought, would it be against the norms to talk about the middle school gym floor?
You want to add that to it?
Yeah, 10C, middle school floor.
I mean, because that's something you said you wanted to do, so it's not
Right.
a brand new subject.
The whole point was this. All right, we're talking about the floor, the gym, and all of a sudden somebody says, well, how does it affect the playground out there? Well, let's go ahead and work, it's something that's not prepared, and so forth.
But we can, I would think we could discuss things even though we weren't prepared and then follow up and say, okay, we'll get back to you.
Yeah.
We're not asking you to make a decision on
No.
something you're not prepared on.
But we have a bad habit of getting off in tangents, and it's true from both sides. And that's what we want to get away from. Right?
Right, but also, I think Mr. Thomas is what he's saying is, we don't want to discuss one gym floor, we've got too many to discuss, so should we make better use of the time by discussing it tonight? But if you want to put that off, we could.
No, we don't.
Madam Chair,
that's-
I'd like to make a point, under the, I think it's item 5, Anthem escrow construction contingency funds?
It's in there.
It's in there for the middle school floors, the gym floors.
Well, that's,
Well,
yeah, because that's an A and a B too, but A would be the stuff that the pool that's already been allocated that you're drawing from now. The B would be the plan for the rest of it. But put them in there.
So the gym floor is part of that discussion up there.
okay.
Right. So we could discuss the gym floor then under 5 or 8, whichever you all prefer. Maybe one is the financial part of it and one is the construction part of it. Not sure which way you all are looking at it. So we'll put it in at both places and then we'll be sure to get it covered. How about that?
Mr.
And then that
Mr.
means
Whiteman,
adjournment
let's
through
open that
13.
back door back up, it's locked, please. Sorry.
He was trying to block the noise from the gym. I'm
I know
sure.
that.
Yeah.
Leave
Well,
leave that door open.
Door to the gym, that's why it's so loud.
We just closed it because of the gym noise, but we didn't realize it was, but apparently it's locked, we can't unlock it. All righty. So, anything else on the agenda? All right, very good. So, that takes us down to request for the, to amend the school year budget for the textbook fund. That's all that we just had this week, last week.
Yes, ma'am.
That's for new math and history books, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Yeah, I was the one with questions on this at our board meeting. You guys are doing the one-to-one initiative, correct?
Yes, sir.
So, I was just kind of curious, on the one-to-one initiative, every student from 7 through 12 is gonna get a computer, the way it's working?
Dr. Calvert or Wade?
Certainly, I'm happy to answer questions in relation to textbooks for you. We will be adopting 6 through 12 for the one-to-one conversion beginning in August.
Okay, so this one, it really didn't say, since you want to adopt textbooks for history and math, it did not say what grade levels, what subjects, it just said math. I think it didn't specify it was elementary, middle, high. And I was just kind of curious,
Sure.
are you going to be with the one-to-one initiative? I've always been an advocate for the textbooks, obviously, and then I know the technology and so forth, but I was kind of curious, are you going to be doing both textbooks and the one-to-one?
Great question. We are adopting a K-12 math text as well as a K-12 history book. To give you just a bit of an understanding as to what that entails, we went through a very extensive process. We waited for the state board to provide their validated sources and use that list to then contact vendors. It was a multidisciplinary committee with about 60 to 70 teachers involved. We had vendors come in, all of the books were on display for a month, and teachers were able to come in and evaluate them prior to the vendors' visits. They completed rubrics. We used those to narrow down the scope of our investigation. Vendors came in, we used anecdotal notes as well as the scoring of each of the vendors to make our selection. So we are using Pearson for K-12 for math. That is a tangible document or tangible resources at the elementary level. And at the secondary level, because we are going to the one-to-one, we're going with online text. What that enables us to do is to have updates on a regular basis for the secondary level. They're building in a lot more rigor, project-based learning associated with math.
Now, would that be something that they download when they're at school, that they will have it on their device in case they don't have internet and all that kind of stuff?
You are 100% correct. It also includes a small number of classroom sets. So if we do have a digital concern, we are able to have a backup set. Or if we have a student who, for whatever reason, isn't able to use their one-to-one on that day, they are not excluded from instruction and are able to use a traditional textbook.
So the math is going to be Which one, the history's gonna be online text or the math?
I was referencing math, and
Okay.
the elementary is your traditional handheld textbook. The 6 through 12 is going to be online, and the company we are moving forward with is Pearson.
Okay. So it'll be different grade levels, so obviously like on the history, if they're like ninth grade, it's world history, they get a world history book, 10th grade.
Yes, and we're actually going with Pearson for history for 9 through 12. That's online texts and resources. However, for elementary, we found, and middle school as well, we found another company that was a much more viable option that had better alignment, more appropriate resources for the varied curriculum. So we're going K-8 Five Ponds Press, and that will include hardbound text for elementary, online text and resources for middle. We have a number of professional developments that are hinging upon the purchase, so we're very anxious to submit our purchase order as we have teachers returning to Caroline for Teacher Work Week, the week of August 6th, I believe, is that Monday. We have training scheduled with all of our vendors on August 9th. So it's critical that we're able to submit that PO so that we're able to fulfill the process that we began months ago when the VDOE released the textbooks.
Well,
I just have one more question. If it's
Sure.
a student on the one-to-one initiative, a student, are you gonna have extra computers in the classroom if a student does not have the computer?
That's a great question. In relation to the one-to-one, and we will have backup hard copies for them to use, but to answer your direct question, we will not have extras in the classroom, but we actually have I don't know if we've termed the space that we're using for our store, where students will be repairing Chromebooks, where we'll have our IT techs repairing Chromebooks, and they will have the ability to bring in a computer that needs repair and receive a loaner for the period of time it takes for that Chromebook to be replaced or repaired. So they'll always have access unless of course there's a disciplinary component, and then we would move towards that in-hand textbook to replace the Chromebook during that time period that we're addressing.
Content.
It's the exact same content, yes.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
Now, this is a request to transfer the funds from last year, right?
Right.
357.
Yes, sir.
And the 16 and 17, yes, sir.
Okay, and in this year's fiscal budget that we just approved, the textbook fund is part of the special funds, right?
Yes, sir.
So it's not a normal
And I'll
operating budget.
let Ms. Marcia
Okay.
Stevens address.
Let me
that.
say what I need to say, and then she can address that. So in this year's budget, you had $400,000 for textbooks, and you're transferring 357. Does that mean you really didn't buy any textbooks last year?
No, sir.
Where did you get the money for textbooks if you didn't spend what was in the budget?
2 years worth.
That's 2 years. It's FY16 and FY17 monies is the 300 rollover. FY18 has not been closed out. So when Mr. Finney and I are able to close out and get all the bills for FY18, then there will be an additional rollover. But there has been some purchase. If you just take the 400 for 16, 400 for 17, and then another 400 for 18, we're only asking for the 300,000 for the 2 years of 800,000. And next year is an adoption year also
Right.
for additional textbooks. So we'll continue to roll in order to make that purchase.
Well, my real question is, how do you explain the fact that students are saying they don't have textbooks, and we have money from textbooks to roll over? How does that happen?
We have adopted the cycle that is shared through the Virginia Department of Education, and there has been an onslaught of adjustments to the standards of learning. So we are embracing their structure to ensure that when we're purchasing the resources that are most aligned and most updated based on the SOL changes. So you will find that next year, we're slated to investigate and potentially adopt English science, should the budgetary support be present. So we are, rather than making hasty purchases based on our visible need, we are being very purposeful and deliberate to align with the VDOE so that we don't end up adopting something that becomes outdated very quickly, based on changes.
So my question is to the school board, how do you justify but parents coming to you saying, we don't have textbooks, and you have the textbook left over, the funds left over.
What parents?
I had a half a dozen middle school parents from science call me this year or more, saying their kids were behind and they didn't have the book.
Did you tell them they're calling the wrong people?
Well,
That's what I do.
Yeah, I don't
I'm just
think
telling
that-
you, they called.
Well,
They're
who
not-
was it?
Nothing we can do unless we know.
Well, we can take care of that right now. All you had to do was call the principal of that particular school and ask them why they don't have a textbook. Not call the board of supervisors, because you don't know. I don't
You know,
know.
I'm not gonna take a scolding for somebody calling me, so let's stop that. I'm just telling you the call I got, so don't scold. I can't scold a parent that calls me.
You tell
So
them
I
who's in
understand,
charge.
I'm just telling you, if we get questions, we're asking you a question, so instead of turning it back on us, just, where are we with textbooks? Because there's money left over, and they're saying there aren't books, that's the question. Let's just go to the question instead of go to the blame of what the situation is.
Nobody's blaming anybody, Jeff, but all you had to do was say, hey, I'm on the board of supervisors. Mr. Spalding, as chairman of the school board, give him a call and ask him. Nobody called me.
Yeah, and I,
Okay.
my,
I'm still asking the same question.
Okay,
So
but
what would the answer be?
I'll find out. I don't know that.
and
One
I
of the
think
things
this is what, we're not gonna get into this too much, but what I'm hearing, sitting in between you all, is we need answers when people call us. We don't know how to answer them, so we're trying to get answers. And your answer is, tell the parents that they need to call the principal of the school or their school board district representative, and they will have the answer for you. And if they do not get satisfaction, then they can call us back.
That's right.
And I usually tell them to call the principal of the school they're talking about, because you follow protocol. I'm not in that building, so I don't know where the books are, and I have worked in the building, and I can tell you, some children have those books, and they will be in their lockers, and when they get home, Mom, I don't have a book, so I can't do my work. So it's not all us, and it doesn't appear to be, but the child will tell their parent they don't have a book. And they very well have their book, and all they have to do is go to their teacher, say, Mrs. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so, I need a book tonight, could I have it? They're not doing that. They may not have 30 books or 25 to give to every child every day, so they can check that book out if they need it and bring it back. But like they say, they're
Just,
There are
outdated.
books available.
Can I just ask you, what was the rollover from, like 16, 17?
The 357 is being requested to roll over to the
But
new.
he's saying that was a rollover for 2 years. I
So
think
it's
Mr. Black's
so
question is 1 year rollover.
Yeah, so cumulative is 350.
What's the split?
So, yeah, it would be
You asked
175.
what the split is.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, one of the things, and Mr. Thomas, maybe I can help you with this a little bit, maybe if I misspeak. One of the things that is, as a teacher, the SOLs do change frequently. And like I know for next year, for like history, the SOLs are changing. So the textbooks that we have currently in my classroom, we have classroom sets that I use, and the kids have an online version. The SOLs in US history from like basically World War II to present day are changing quite a bit. The stuff pre-World War II is not. And so what happens is that.
Yours, I don't expect to change. I expect science to change on a
Well, yeah,
regular
well, the
basis.
history,
I don't
it's,
expect
yes,
history to change.
but it does. There's quite a bit of stuff
That's a
being
whole
added.
nother story.
But then, yes, and that gets, you get into political, but I mean, the point is, if I use the textbook heavily, or in the class, and it's not aligned to the SOL, the kids are gonna see stuff on the SOL, that they wouldn't, that wouldn't be in the textbook.
I can assure you that we will be strong fiscal stewards of the textbook fund, as our teachers have been very engaged with the dialogue and are extremely appreciative and are very involved in selecting the right resources so that we can begin to have that blended learning environment at secondary, but also to.
But my question is really, you know, I know staff's gonna have the in-depth detail, and you're
Right.
gonna relay that to them, and they're
Right.
gonna relay that to
Absolutely.
us. So my question was really to the school board, what do we do? And you've explained that there is a protocol, And Ms. Harris said there may be a case where there are books that exist, the student may or may not have them. But if, and that's really the issue. If a parent comes to me, I'm gonna send them to the school board representative. But when they come back to me and say, we don't have books for whatever reason, and I'm here, see, I'm here giving a $350,000 rollover, that just doesn't sound right to the parent on the other end, or to me on this end, quite frankly.
Well, you know,
Mr. Thomas, may I?
the question I get, the only calls I get is there's a problem at the school, a discipline problem, bullying problem, etc., okay? First thing I do is say, which school are we talking about? The middle school. Okay, have you talked to Miss So-and-so, the teacher in that class? No, that's who you go talk to. If they can't give you a good answer, go on to the principal and so forth and like that. I don't try to solve that problem. But if it goes up the ladder all the way to me, then that's a different ballgame. And on these books, we don't know that, you know, who has books and who doesn't.
But you can see, I mean, you can see from my perspective, if somebody called me and said, there's $350,000 in book fund and my kid doesn't have a book, why doesn't Johnny have a book?
But what do you tell them?
Now, I'm gonna tell them, you know, based on what you said,
Right.
I'm gonna tell them to go to their school board member and find out what happens, and if you're not satisfied, come back and tell me. But just thinking, I'm automatically on their side just from what I see. And that's why I want you to see from my perspective, we're rolling over $350,000. How come somebody doesn't have a $10 book? And staff may have the logistic answer for it. Trust me, I'm on your side in going away from books to electronics. You know, because I think if you have a Chromebook or whatever, an iPad, you can do a lot better, because if in Mr. Black's case, history changes, you can download the new version of history. But, you know, science changes and evolves on a regular basis. So does technology. That I understand. But just, I want you to see from my perspective. I'm not critical. I just want you to see from my eyes, and I try to see from your eyes. If a parent calls me and says, Johnny doesn't have a book, why is there $350,000 in the budget being moved over?
I
have a hard time explaining it to
The two
them.
may be thoroughly unrelated. If one parent calls you and asks, why doesn't my student have a book? The fact that there's $300,000 left in.
But we hear stories of classes. We hear stories of classes without books.
You just said student.
I told you, a student. I've had that happen. We hear stories of classes without books. That's another subject, but you added that in.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
It might-
I'm happy now. I just want to make sure we understand the process.
I have a child going into 5th grade, and a child going into 4th grade, and a child going into 1st grade.
Yes,
I've never seen a textbook from home.
right.
And I presume that's by intention, but that's gonna change with the new philosophy? She's
In
gonna have-
relation
she's
to
gonna have
them
a
coming
history
back
book?
and forth to the households, you would absolutely have access to that textbook through your child's backpack, going back and forth. There may be times where there's a unit that is occurring in the classroom where they're doing a project-based learning in the classroom, so you may be a period of time where it's not coming home because the work is really going to be school-based and there won't be that home aspect. But absolutely, it is something that you should be seeing on a regular basis.
In the future.
As we roll into this new adoption, yes.
And it's a consumable, so I know, just from my personal experience, my daughter uses a consumable. It typically stays at, like a work paper book. So it typically stays
Well, not a
at
stack of paper this high.
the office.
You know, when
For
it's-
what grade?
Or
Of
What grade is she
worksheets.
in?
third and fourth.
You know,
Oh,
information.
For
okay,
those-
yeah.
those
Disposable
years.
books are a good idea, yeah.
Yes, so it would stay there at school, so they're not forgetting, that way they have it at school to complete their work in the worksheets. So I personally don't often see the books come home, even though they have them at school.
But it's not, I don't see it often, I've never.
You've never
seen
seen it.
Because my
And-
presumption is that they aren't given them, they're given worksheets and activities, and they're given everything in paper form. But my child is one of those that would actually my oldest two would actually read ahead.
Yes.
And read some sections that aren't being covered, or that
Right.
spark their interest because of the picture or whatever like that, so I remember I did that, you know.
I do
8
believe
years ago.
that having two folks here in front of you that don't have a long-standing history in the county, in looking retroactively at textbook adoption, there was absolutely a break in that process. And I don't know the reason behind that, but I do know that prior to the superintendent currently seated here, the superintendent made a real point of having that pot of money so that we could begin to take those positive steps forward to ensure that we have the appropriate resources on a regular basis for our students and teachers.
One of the things I think is crucial is, I mean, and I don't know if you remember it, John, but I was at the polls in November, and I had a parent come up to me and start talking. It was middle school, and the parent was talking about how the child was in middle school, 7th, 8th grade, and math, and want to be able to help their child, but it was getting to the point where it was necessary for the parent to look over the information to help the child, and she was concerned she wasn't seeing that without having the textbook to go over herself.
Right.
It was very hard for her to help her daughter. So if there's stuff that can definitely go home, or, so you're saying the stuff that like, if we have, we have a meeting, I have a meeting tomorrow with Comcast about trying to expand. There's a huge area, if you look at a map, we've done a map of this county, how many people don't have internet service. So this is going to be something that's going to be on, that they don't need internet access to look at the information.
Correct.
It's all going to be
Download.
You can
Yeah,
use this
right.
offline,
Yeah.
as well as our learning management system, Schoology, both have capabilities for offline usage.
And for us to be able to accomplish,
Tell Nancy, 'cause I'm not-
sorry. I was gonna say, for us to be able to accomplish the adoption, we have to have rollover funds, because that budget for FY19 isn't sufficient to accomplish this adoption.
Yeah, I'm all
How
on the
much,
rollover
how much
funds,
is
no problem.
actually in the fund currently before we roll this over?
Oh, there's over 600.
About 600,000 as of today, unaudited and unadjusted for the current year.
So this will make it almost $1 million.
No,
The 600 includes the 357 they're requesting to transfer
Mm-hmm.
to 19.
and we still have expenses coming through for 18. That's the reason why we're not asking for 18 funds.
Mr. Cullen.
Remember, it was a couple of years ago, I recommended that we create textbook fund.
Right.
Because when I had it forever in Middlesex, for sort of the same
State fund.
reasons, people would say we didn't have books, and I'm like, we're funding that every year based on the formula, which we were doing here. But you can't see it when it's in the operations budget, so we broke that out. And that's why we can tell you, because that money now is rolled into this fund. And they did the same thing. We rolled that money every year. Some years they spent more than others due to these adoption schedules. And somewhere along the line, who knows when, they must have missed some adoptions back, but it was rolled into operations. You didn't really know what that was. It was turned back in and wasn't kept in the fund. So there have been years that the schools have turned back and have reversion money just recently. So that's where it could, I think this will fix this moving forward, but it will be a process we'll do every year where they're going to come and say, hey, we need 100,000, we need 200,000 rolled over out of the fund. It's basically its own fund balance.
So there will
For
be,
the
a-
textbook
It is their
fund.
savings account.
there will be a.
No, it's their textbook fund.
Textbook, 4 textbooks.
Right.
So this is just the first time you've had to do
The
it.
textbooks all go to computers, does that mean the computers are gonna come out of the textbook fund
I
in
think
some
the
form?
No,
Software.
sir. There are
Software.
3 specific codes
Yeah,
that
you'll
Mrs.
load the
Stevens can
software.
provide you greater detail on, that permit you to purchase software for educational purposes, but not the hardware. Hardware that we're purchasing is coming through VPSA funds.
Which is
So
another
you are
one of the
not
special
able to
funds.
purchase that
Correct.
through this money.
Well, there will be a letter that goes home to the students that are getting the one-to-one, that all of the programs from math and history and so forth are downloaded on their computer.
Yes, we do not have access to that yet, as we have not submitted our PO.
Well,
but
I
as
understand
soon
that, but
as we-
once, as soon as we do, there will be a letter, and you guys.
There will be a media blitz of many sorts, yes, sir.
Are you saying so they won't feel bad about
We-
not having internet?
What's that?
So they won't feel bad about not
Well,
having
no,
internet?
well, not only that, but so that they'll know that it's actually, the student can't say to them, I don't have a textbook. It's all
Right,
on.
right, okay.
And Mr. Thomas, to address that
Yes, ma'am.
situation, if a parent had that concern, we are in the process of purchasing some items that you can check out from the library, somewhat of a hotspot. So if a child had
Right.
something that they needed to work on at home that they felt passionately about, they could check that out through the library and give them access for the time period they needed Wi-Fi. Additionally, that's why we're getting some of the tangible books, so that should that child need to take that home for the evening, we could accommodate that request as well.
Okay, can I, piggyback on that and ask Wade, if you're tied into the libraries and the fire stations?
We are not currently tied with them.
Because all of the libraries with E-Fund or E-Rate money, they're all Wi-Fi hotspots, and I don't know if,
That's on our list. We do have queued up for these media releases, places that parents and students can find free public Wi-Fi. And so we've listed places like the libraries.
Dawn Library here.
McDonald's. We've gone through the.
Okay.
Denny's. Yeah.
Do we make the fire stations public? Or they closed?
We have enough bandwidth that does,
Did we stay on topic?
That was on topic.
No one, that's broadband, that's not.
No, that was textbooks that were electronic.
Can I have a motion on this?
Make a motion that we,
All right.
second.
I have a motion and a second discussion.
Fine.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved.
Thank you for answering those questions.
Thank you.
All right.
Tell my kids their backpacks are getting heavier.
They should get lighter than one.
Well, the kids will pay for it.
No, I don't know if that's-
Okay. All right. Escrow fund for construction. I don't know what they're doing, because I haven't done all these nice things, I'm just gonna. Yeah. Same clothes, because of course, they should have it all. All right. So this is from the June 19th meeting, requesting the appropriation of the remaining $450,000 from the Caroline High School Mass Elementary Renovation Project Contingency Fund.
When we were in the budget process, a few months ago, there was this number that, and I guess I'm getting confused, there was this number of about $500,000 to $12,000. We talked about anthem funds, and we released $300,000 to cover health insurance, different bucket. Different bucket, same bucket.
Same thing. Same thing.
We can go back to the budget, and we were talking about the money they were requesting for insurance. That did include reversion funds they hadn't spent. So it was a combination of how much money they had left to spend. What's listed out here is what's actually left from all of the funds that they had, which were reversion funds. Curtis has gone through that list,
So let me ask you.
don't try to match up numbers from the budget, because that had additional reversion fund money to total that up.
This is all.
This is from the $1 million that we designated probably over a year ago.
2 years ago.
That we previously allocated $550,000.
From Anthem.
Correct.
Yes, that the whole million was from Anthem. It's all went into contingency, then we allocated $550,000 for bills.
Correct.
And this is the remaining $450 of that million.
The million.
But
The
so-
total anthem money was 1,900,000 and some thousand.
Right.
So when there have been pieces of the anthem money talked about, that's money that was different from this 1 million set aside contingency. That's all we're talking about.
Well,
is
we
this
had
1
talked about
million.
budget season, maybe, and this is, we had talked about budget seasons, taking the other, there was a number of like 512 that I remember. And then we had talked about taking 300 and giving it to teachers to cover the increase in the health insurance, and then holding back the other 212,
Which we did.
for next year.
That's not this million.
Okay, all right, so how do we do it?
Remember, the total anthem money, 1,985,000, somewhere in that range.
So-
So this million's just this million, so when we've talked about anthem money in other places, we weren't talking about this.
This is just Anthem money, not rollover money.
Correct, it's not conversion, this is the 1 million contingency which we had appropriated 550 from.
So is there still $1 million contingency in the high school?
Now, this
This
is
is that.
Well, the high school, we still are showing the high school at 95% complete. We just had it in our board packet. And at 95% complete, that's $1.1 million
Come to the front, Doug.
that's still up in the air because we're not done with the high school. And I'm not comfortable until I see,
Charlie, you can bring your computer
What you need?
Power plug.
Correct.
Oh,
What
correct.
you're referring to is the
I use my
95%.
phone.
Don't shut that all the way, sir. Can you open that door back up?
You've got 95% here. We spent 95% of that money that you got earmarked for the high school, correct? Correct. There's nothing to do with the percentage completion, the amount of money that was allocated or budgeted or whatever the right number, right verb is. We spent 95% of what was tagged for the high school. Has nothing to do with, the high school's finished.
it's still showing us that 5% is outstanding.
He's saying
which is 1.1 million.
that's 95% of the money, not 95% of the project.
You're saying the project's 100%
If you look at the numbers, the number in the left-hand column is 21 million, the number in the center column is 20 million. Okay, the difference is 5%, okay? That's the amount of money we spent out of the 21 million that was allotted, I hate to use some of these words, because budgeted for the high school.
How much
We've
is
submitted.
on the contract?
We finished the
How
contract.
much was the contract amount for the high school?
I'd have to get back to you on that, because I don't know that number right off the top of my head.
But it's done, it's completed.
Yeah, we've turned in the final,
Yes.
we've turned in the final bill.
1.983 was the total number.
The base contract for Southwood,
1.983.
Well, it's pretty close, 1985.
the base contract for Southwood for the high school was $17,643,101.
And at 95% complete, we spent 20 million and change.
That's because we had Honeywell, we had Honeywell, we had many other vendors that we had to pay.
I need to add them up to the other vendors.
Just saying that we haven't seen the final accounting on, we, the board, haven't seen the final accounting.
You spent all the money though, right?
No, I haven't spent all of them.
How much money do you have left?
There's still punched out items
No, it is.
that you,
Well, we're
I
down
don't
to
want to use the
one-
wrong word.
We're
How
down
much
to
money do you have
1
left?
Should be a little over $100,000 left of the 550.
We're spending 450 of that.
No, 450 is the other half of it.
This is,
The 550 was the initial we appropriated. So we've appropriated 550 to the high school. We have 450 that's not appropriated out of the million that they're asking for. With what they listed in here that they want to do.
That was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. Right.
No, this is
From the
May.
ninth, this is from June 19th.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, June 19th.
Do we really want to philosophically use this Anthem insurance money now and not think about insurance costs next year?
Basically, usually insurance doesn't go up big, back to back. See, this past year, we didn't have that problem. This year, we're going to have that problem. And what we're trying to do is just take this Anthem money and take a little bit of pressure off the people. We tried to give a little bit of a raise to them, because some of them going to end up, even doing it like this, going to end up breaking even.
All right, that's a
They're not
separate
gonna
bucket of money, that's not this money.
There is,
Right.
and there's another 221,000, Mr. Thomas, that is unappropriated that you guys did ask for us to hold on to for next year should a health insurance crisis come up.
There was two.
That's above this mid.
212.
It was 521, I believe, and we allocated
Took
300,000, so 221 remaining.
That's
That
not
is
in this
unappropriated, and
Right.
that is a separate pot of money.
There's 221,000
That's
more.
on here.
For next
Whatever.
year. But the cost of this year was $1 million. That's my point. Plus, we just heard that the health insurance markets were going away. So,
The cost for this year was 605,000, and we funded
Yeah.
the 300,000 you allowed out of the 521,000.
this is all with except for 73,000, I guess, for technology. It's all basically maintenance and construction. I mean,
And in our adopted budget, we had 109,000 in the CIP that was approved and passed with Mr. Cully's recommendation. $59,500 for the CMS generator and $50,000 for staff on the
So
student
this money,
computer
this money right
replacement.
here could be used, and Mr. Tom's saying this could be used to be held over for additional health insurance costs each year for teachers, correct? The money that's here that we're seeing, they could hold on to this in case the health insurance goes up for next year for teachers or their support staff and everything.
Which is above 220,000, Jeff?
What's that?
Over and above the 220,000 we have set aside already?
It went up 600,000
Went up 600,000
this year.
Well,
On your side.
Our
In the
experience rate went up.
prior 3 years, it was holding very low percentage increases, 0%. 1 year, it actually went down a little bit, and the highest was 2%.
You don't think on the national level with all what's going on with insurance that it's not gonna go up again?
It's based on our claims, so it's,
We have a young workforce.
It's based on experience rate. We don't have any control over experience rate, obviously.
But you said you have a young workforce.
Yeah, they said 2 years ago that was one of the things that kept it low. We can't keep teachers, so they leave, so most of our teachers are usually between step 0 and step 5, which are relatively healthy people, so we don't get a lot of claims on the insurance.
But how come it
Last
went up
year, we had like a
$600,000?
handful of people that
We did
had
have
some major
major
medical
claims.
issues, and that spiked it for everybody.
Are those people still in the system?
I don't know specifics on individual personnel.
that's a PHI.
I mean, we don't care to know who they are. We just need to know if they're still in the system because that helps their rate go back up.
I'm just saying, they may not know.
I wouldn't expect them to know
Right.
But
who they are.
traditionally, it's like every other year. One year it's okay, then the following year, bam, they come back and they hit you. That's the way it's been all the way down through the years.
Okay. I'm gonna say what I'm saying and I'm done. I don't see anything on here that's super critical to have to do without finding money from somewhere else, that we can't save this money for next year's health insurance increase, which I'm willing to bet everybody $1 to a donut right now, they do go up again.
The only thing that bothers me philosophically, and I do agree with, I understand, I don't know a lot of this stuff, but I do understand. One of the things that, and during the budget time, when we handed over the money that we handed over, once the budget was adopted, and we got lambasted by some of the people saying that we didn't cover the health insurance, and that we didn't release the whole amount of money. And then to us, there's some money that's being available here to actually put aside for health insurance. So we got criticized for not putting out the whole 512. Now I know that's a different pot of money, but we got criticized for not releasing the 512, and now you're taking money that could be used and spending it on capital projects. To me, that's a little bit frustrating, because that was
What's
the major
frustrating
criticism.
about any of the projects in here, Jeff?
That was the
We need
criticism
gym
that we
floor.
took.
It's just the gym floor. We need the gym floor to injury people. And we stand to have some
Kid
people.
trips aside now, we have kids that trip and fall.
We're gonna do the gym floor ourselves, all right?
At the middle school?
At the middle school.
Chesapeake Bay Governor's School tuition is $73,500.
Yeah, but that's not, let me say something, that's not a one-time expense, that's a continuing expense. It's an operating expense, and you're taking that out of one-time money. That is not a good move.
In this instance, in the current budget system, I
But
disagree with
it's
you,
not,
Jeff.
it's not a maintenance item, it is a continued expense, it's an operation expense that we're paying out of one-time money. And we've been trying to emphasize that that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to do one-time capital projects, capital situations out of one-time money. That tuition's gonna pop up again next year, and it's not gonna be in your budget because you paid it out of a capital fund this year.
Are you sure it's gonna be here next year?
Has it been, was it there last year? Was it there the year before? I mean, are you getting rid of the governor's school? I mean, if you're gonna do that, you need to tell everybody that.
It's
So
not
if
a
that's what
question
the
to get rid
message
of the
is,
governor's school, the question, can we finance the seats? If we don't finance the seats, we will be out of the governor's school.
okay,
Yeah, because sometimes kids don't go.
but we're,
So tuition
but
rates
that is
drop,
not a
but-
capital expense.
It's a yearly budget expense.
Right.
Let me ask you this question, because, I mean, maybe we're a little bit paranoid about the health insurance, but would you be willing to go like 250? If we gave you the 250 for the capital projects and held back 200,000 to additional for the insurance? So that way it would add up, so that you're guaranteeing that these teachers next year, because I would personally like to continue to give the raises. But I also understand, I don't want, I mean, you just don't know, I mean, you had back-to-back, it's rare, I get it, but that way the pot would cover any sort of health
So you're
insurance
talking
costs.
about creating another one-time allotment of funds to pay for potential operating expense increase of healthcare, is that what you're telling me? You want to take 220,000 and then 200,000 out of this and add them together and get you 420.
So that way you would have the health insurance.
That's a one-time funds to pay for an
But
operational
next year, the
expense.
insurance is still gonna be high. I mean,
It's still an operational
It's not
cost, and
gonna
you're talking
drop
about taking
$900,000.
capital
Yeah.
funds that
You're-
you set aside for a
You're
one-time
you're
event.
exactly right what you say, John. You're
And
exactly
so,
right.
we're fundamentally disagreeing with you
Well-
that just because you're taking operational money and paying one-time funds to pay operations.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
We think that there's different needs.
Okay. And I'm again gonna say, you are right in that the process is what it is. What I'm saying and what I'm gonna stick to is that if your insurance goes up next year, this will basically soften the blow to everybody.
what if it doesn't?
And
Then you have that money next year if it doesn't.
Okay, so when we start losing teachers at the beginning of the.
You gonna lose teachers because you didn't build a retaining wall?
We gonna, no,
Come
we're
on.
gonna lose teachers because we're not giving them enough to jumpstart.
That has nothing to do with this.
Yeah, but you can go you should not live in Carolina and go 15 miles and make $10,000 more a
That has nothing
year.
to do with what's on this sheet. Let's stick to this sheet.
Right.
Yeah,
This sheet has nothing to do with
We're trying
that,
to
and we're trying to help you do that.
You know,
Trying to help with
Mr.
health
Black.
No, we're trying to give
No, I'm
them.
just saying, you have.
My point to Mr. Copeland was he was right about the one-time expense, covering operating expense. I agree with that. Nothing on this sheet means we're gonna get a teacher. Us saving this money to help pay insurance or to give you something to pay insurance now would save teachers.
Dr. Hellman.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
I'm following what you're saying.
Okay.
We're gonna give Dr. Hellman a chance.
If I may, and I don't want to be obvious, but
Please.
if you go down to the bottom of the list, you'll note that of the 450, we have asked to put 71,000, approximately 71,000 to the rainy day fund, which is currently at about 127,000. So when you put those two together, that rainy day fund would be at approximately 200,000. So I don't know if that, and I
but you
agree
won't.
with Mr.
Okay.
Seeley 100% regarding capital items and one-time costs. But sometimes, and when you have to be desperate to get something done, you know, desperate times sometimes call for desperate action.
Last comment, to respond to Ms. Harris, which is my whole point. If we give you this money for insurance, or insurance this year, those teachers would be getting a raise, right?
Right.
If you use this money to cover insurance this year, they would be getting a raise,
Hopefully, yeah.
okay? So if we save some of this money for insurance, they would be getting a raise conceivably next year, because you put more money in their insurance pool. So they would get a raise, this year, but they wouldn't get a raise next year.
Maybe not. But right now is what we're concerned about this year.
Well, let's use some of this money to offset your insurance costs for this year and not build a retaining wall.
Well, there's employer match and employee contribution.
Right.
We've already budgeted the employer match, what we're going to pay, that's already in the budget. So we couldn't
Right.
take that money and put it there, because we've already allocated, is that the right word?
You've covered.
Budgeted that money to pay for our
It's
contribution for
encumbered.
the insurance.
It's in the budget for our
But
amount of insurance.
me, John Doe, the teacher, now have my employer portion of my insurance covered. Me, John Doe, the teacher, has a wife and 5 kids at home that now my insurance is going up $400 a month. I did not get a raise. I want you to fix my problem. I want to help you fix my problem. How can I do that? Do I build a retaining wall? Or do I say John Doe, the teacher who's got 5 kids and a wife at home, gets money from the Anthem Insurance Fund that he already paid into?
So are you suggesting then that we don't do any capital improvements, that we just take all the money and give it to the teachers?
We're going to get to money where there's capital improvements, I'm sure we are. But I'm saying, do I need to build a retaining wall? Do you need to replace the gym floor? We said we were gonna do that before. Do you need to repair a sunken sidewalk? I mean,
But if you guys are replacing the gym floor, that's $80,000, plus we have $71,000 that's going in the rainy day fund.
well, we kind of
That's
different.
$150,000 right
Well,
there that we
let's
could
talk
set
about
back.
the conversion, because we talked about this last year at this exact same time.
You can sit down, Mike.
Silly, just vote.
Don't
Yeah,
don't
I'm
stand up the whole time.
Mr. Black, you had something you wanted to say?
No, I mean, I'm
All
not.
right, Mr. Sealy, I just want to try to.
We
keep
talked
your
about
words
this
and I
gas
don't.
conversion last year for the middle school and the boiler. We've made zero progress in a year on natural gas in any of the buildings. So here we are now asking for roughly $77,000. There was money in the budget for capital to do natural gas that never got used. And here we are again, so now it's up in the 450,000, and we haven't accomplished any of those things that we've been talking about for 2 years, making the boilers at the middle school natural gas, and actually converting them. We actually offered to pay for that last year. We were told you all were gonna take care of it. It's not done. Now we're looking at natural gas conversion kits for the bus garage, but we still haven't done anything at the high school. We've got the whole propane farm out there still, and every one of those units came in ordered as natural gas units. We haven't made that conversion yet. And you could have saved a ton of money making that conversion, but now here we are, we're gonna spend the $450. The middle school is about $355,000. We offered to do that last year under our contract, and it didn't get done. I don't understand some of the capital projects that we're talking about when we've offered to do them in the past. And here we are a year later with none of them done. And money in the budget last year for some of them.
And I did notice that we also have an update on the conversion of BOS to natural gas listed as spent, so.
Yeah, but this is listed as a capital project here that we talked about natural gases projects for 2 years. It's at the very bottom.
But it's a different type.
Transportation.
But we haven't even set the meter.
All right, well, hold on just a second.
Can I say something?
Yes.
The meter is set at transportation. We have a cost to convert transportation. The equipment in transportation of approximately $11,000. Okay, the meter is set at the high school. We have a vendor standing by to interconnect the equipment that is natural gas capable at a cost of like $5,000 or $6,000. Okay, the only one that's in question is the middle school. The middle school meter. I'm working with the gas company right now to set the meter for the middle school. The other 2 projects are waiting for these funds so I can move forward. I've got the information sitting there ready to go. The money that was allocated or in the capital budget 2 years ago, I believe it was $75,000. Mr. Cully, you may remember that we used that money as the aid to construction when we renegotiated the cost to get the actual pipelines installed. So that money was used towards the natural gas project.
Right, like used on the boards, was used.
Mr.
on
Whiteman?
the contract.
Can you shed any light on because the natural gas update that I got from economic development is that we were closing in on having to get an extension to connect. But then we found out that none of the meters were set, so that wasn't really an issue. As of like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, whether the meters are set on what I'll call the load side, the line side is the gas company. They're exempt from the code, so I wouldn't know. Alls I know is none of the gas was inspected on the line, load side, which is at the school, so I know we're not there yet. Correct, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, we're waiting, the meters at the high school and transportation have been set. We held off on setting the one at the middle school specifically so we wouldn't be into the penalty phase.
Right, it's a year time frame.
Yeah. Right. But we're sitting there with purchase orders ready to go as soon as we get funding to connect those 2 buildings.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Corrigan.
What type of floor is proposed for middle school?
It's a resilient floor, similar to what's there now. It's like a tartan floor.
$80,000 for that?
We have an extra cost in removing the old floor. as well as prep of the concrete underneath of it, which we don't know what kind of shape that's in. So, yes, it may be slightly over budgeted, but I'd rather go in high than come back and say, hey, I need X number of dollars to finish.
I'm just thinking we can get really close to a hardwood floor for a single court for.
Yeah, it has to do with the use, you gotta remember what that building, what that particular floor is used for. It's not just a gym floor.
It's a gym.
Yeah, but it gets used for assemblies, it gets used for everything and anything, so.
With the cafeteria there, you use that?
Every gym is used like that.
With the cafeteria, you use that as the assembly hall? No?
They have the,
Maybe auditorium too,
first
but
walk in.
Yeah, that's the cafeteria, that's what I call it, but that's really the assembly hall.
Think of this, that all-purpose floor lasts, how long, I don't remember how old that's.
well, that's the original floor, it's been there since '92.
Okay.
It opened in 92.
And, as
And the
far as
products that are out
the
there
wood
now.
goes, it's nice, but it can't take the beating that those all-purpose floors get.
No, there's high schools that have church services and have graduations and have basketball games and wrestling matches and year round. I mean, the Carolina, I know that you have to maintain them,
Yeah.
but
And they keep the gyms covered out there, the floors and so forth, when they have those things.
so I just never seen a covered wood floor in high school. I've never had
The new gym?
any gym.
Oh, no.
Any gym for as long as I've been walking in the gym, I've never seen a cover on top of it.
The last, all-TC dinner they had out there, it was covered.
Middle school graduation.
Right.
Ceremony talk over for that, for everything, except basketball.
Yeah, you could.
If,
You'll see it.
if we were to pull out, this is my colleague, pull out the rainy day fund, you already indicated you're probably gonna not spend, of the 550 that's already been allocated, you're not gonna spend probably about 100 grand. If you add those together to the 212 that's already sitting there, it puts about $400,000 available for your purposes you're speaking of, Mr. Conley.
I am not going to vote for any of this money being used for any capital projects. I think we're going to find other money for capital projects. So I've already cast my vote, whatever you do.
Other discussion, questions? In favor here?
Yes, Madam Chair. Clay, that's an excellent recap. I'm just trying to head in that direction. You know, we have, by the time you get finished with all the pieces and parts of leftover money here, funds there, you'll have about $420,000 just doing what we're doing, not making any changes to what we're doing. We have $420,000 that you could use for paying one-time incremental costs next year for health insurance purposes because it's unallocated completely.
I mean, I agree that the gym floor needs to be repaired. And I have a little bit of a philosophical issue with the governor's school, but I understand where you're coming from.
And I totally,
But as an annual
I totally
expense,
get the one time. But as I said, you know, sometimes desperate times call for desperate actions.
I have a question, under the natural gas conversion. Anticipated down payment financing due to potential interest rate increase. What financing is that and what kind of an increase is this?
Well, Madam Chair, my experience is that what we're looking at here, the energy management agreements typically, as you all know, yourself, you save the money and then you pay. But it's based on the interest rates. And so what you're charged for that system and what you pay back, that interest rate is constantly, I mean, over the past 2 years or so, a quarter of a point each quarter, you know, it's kind of ticked up. So I think that is a contingency to prepare. I'll yield to.
Madam Chair, I was just going to tell you that as a matter of fact that the Federal Reserve has incrementally raised interest rates regularly, and the anticipation is that they will continue to raise interest rates.
And I'm not arguing with that fact.
Oh, but then that's what that's for,
Remind
right?
the school board that I think what the board is having trouble with. I personally am glad to see that you're doing this. We just wish you'd done it with us.
The sooner we do it, the less of that 50,000 gets spent.
Because if you'd done it with us, it would have been done by now, and it would have saved, it would have been cheaper to do it as a group, because you always get better
Everything's cheaper
service
in the
with
past,
group.
isn't it?
Yeah. So that's a hard one for me to handle, although I do think the energy study needs to, improvements need to be done. And that is at the middle school that study's being done, it's not doing, it's being done at all the schools.
It's the middle school.
Any particular reason we're not doing them all like we did all our buildings at one time? Because you've already done some?
We did some of that when we did the high school, but the main thing was this was being driven by a mechanism to fund the replacement of the boilers.
Did you guys say what the asset management fund was? I mean, it's a lot less on the purple.
$52,000
That's the cyclical maintenance on the things that don't reach the level of a capital improvement, like painting classrooms, replacing carpeting in classrooms, things like that. It was budgeted last year, but it was a fund we created to be able to do those ancillary things.
So typically in Jeffrey's budget, in the maintenance budget, there's about $52,000 that's in there every year as cyclical maintenance. This year, in order to balance the budget, we did pull that $57,000 out, so he does not have any money in the FY19 for cyclical maintenance, and we placed it in the $450,000 Anthem escrow funds.
I mean, I think these are in the wrong order, because when we look at what you all have pulled out of, I mean, you pulled $50,000 out, or $30,000 out of maintenance and $55,000 out of facilities that you're transferring from last year's budget to next year's budget. And then over here, we're actually putting money back in out of the capital fund to actually fund those items. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me what's going on.
Mr. Kelly, if you can remind me, since I wasn't here, was last year, it was asked of us to remove his cyclical maintenance out of the budget and put it in the Anthem money that was previously, the $661,000 that was previously, and the reversion funds.
Yeah, there were no reversion funds for FY18. Yeah,
So for FY18, he didn't have the cyclical either, because it was asked to put into the reversion and the Anthem funds. And there was no CIP monies given to the schools for FY18.
Correct.
But you have the money left over, you're taking it out. You're taking it out of this year's budget, moving it to next year's. I'm looking at the next agenda item, because these things are out of order, new business request for
No,
student
that's not changing it
contribution.
from year to year.
They're not between years, that's between, in the same year, it's just
Same year.
reclassification.
Even worse, it's staying in the same year, and you're taking it out and you're moving it someplace else, but you're telling me that you didn't have the money to spend. but
We
you're
overspent
moving-
somewhere else.
Well, it was budget authority, we were asked not to spend,
No, you can't.
as, it was budget authority that we could have spent, but we were asked not to spend it and asked to be put it in the Anthem and the reversion funds.
Am I the only one? I don't understand a single word that
It
was
was in
just
the
said.
FY18 budget. Then we were asked to not use the cyclical maintenance money in 18 and put
I
that
agree.
in the Anthem and reversion funds. I wasn't here, I can only follow what the financial records are doing.
But we wouldn't have, we, the Board of Supervisors, wouldn't have said, don't spend money in your current budget.
Right.
On maintenance.
Well, I know there was
Especially on
also a
maintenance.
discussion of bus leases and buses, wasn't it also?
Yeah, but that was at the beginning of the budget. That was at the very beginning of the budget.
Once 18 was already 18 was adopted,
No, it was the adoption of 18 created an agreement that we were going to use reversion funds for those buses and some leases and things, and it was a list of number, it was 288,000 and change. that we were using in reversion funds for capital stuff, which was probably his cyclical maintenance.
In
But it was
facilities.
in facilities, so you had it, but where it was coming from wasn't new county money, it was reversion.
Right, but the budget authority was in the FY18 budget for facilities also, which was not spent, because it was actually spent out of the reversion and the anthem funds.
That's where it was supposed to have been.
Did you understand that?
Correct.
Yeah.
But the budget authority for
Which is scary.
facilities was still in there in FY18 adopted budget, based on your appropriation document we received.
I'm back to my
So it was in
original
two
question,
places
my
and we only
original-
spent it once,
But it was spent
in the anthem reversion funds for FY18, yes.
But we're
for
still-
maintenance.
Yes.
But they're still asking for it again in the special appropriation to spend again.
In the future, in this
It's
current.
not to spend
But
it.
it's in the budget, because they're taking it out in 18.
Right.
So how can we,
Well, 18 or 19.
well, they're taking it out of 18 and moving it around, so it's probably in the 19 budget as well.
It's not.
Don't assume that.
You did not approve
Don't
any
assume that.
dollars in the facility category for
We didn't
19.
approve any money in the
And
facilities
that's
category
correct.
in the appropriation.
According to the budget resolution we adopted, it was 57.5, and there's nothing in here at all.
That's the way they arranged that.
That wasn't us, that was
Yeah, that's
them.
them, yeah.
That is
But
us for
it's-
this
that's
year, for
resolution we
19,
adopted.
yes, because we
Right.
have it in the 450,000 anthem funds.
We didn't tell them to do that, that's what they
Right, they did.
Not for 19, correct.
They're in the company.
So you've taken, I'm gonna go back to my, so when you do your budget next year, you're starting from 0. And we're taking all this one-time money and spending it. And then we're gonna come up to budget time next year, you're gonna say, well, last year we had nothing in there. And the budget's tight again, and we need money in there because there's no one-time money to spend because we've spent it all.
We still will have the rainy day fund of approximately 200,000.
Well, but is that gonna carry over?
Well, it was my understanding that the rainy day fund was for the school board and it was a carryover mechanism. I could possibly be wrong, but
Yeah, that was the intent. We stayed, it would stay there as appropriated.
I've already said what I was gonna do.
Alright. So, what we have before us is a list of requests totaling $450,000 to be moved from the,
Escrow to the FY19 budget.
escrow to the 2019 budget to do this list of repairs. Some of which are needed. Mr. Thomas has already said that we had discussed earlier doing the gym floor. We discussed it and voted on it.
And we need
And-
this for the teacher raises to
Right.
take some pressure off them.
What?
Huh?
We talked about 300,000.
We're still
No,
in it.
we're still on this, we haven't voted on this yet. Yeah, don't throw any more numbers out there. I'm already.
I want to know how retaining will help the teachers.
Alright. So are we doing,
It's in
kind
the
of promotion part sections? Anybody want to work with us? The retaining wall, I have a question on that. Does that serve a purpose? Is it like a erosion type thing or is it a decorative thing?
It's an erosion type thing.
It's only $900.
Right.
It's an
The
example.
materiality of that is just not gonna exist.
it's a safety issue, to be quite
Okay.
frankly with you.
All right, I'm just going through them because I can get you things simple for me when it comes to this stuff. The technology, that's needed for the textbooks, correct?
I'm sorry, I do not have the list in front of me.
The Microsoft license.
Which one?
30K for Microsoft licensing.
Yes, that's our licensing for all of Windows and Microsoft Office for our,
Site licenses.
Is that for the new stuff or the?
that's for all computers in the district. It allows us to install Windows, and then if a new version of Windows comes out, like 10, if we were running 7, we can upgrade to 10 for free at any
Still
point.
running 7?
No, we've been on 10.
Okay.
But yeah, it covers all of Windows and Office
How often do you have to do that?
annually. It's an
Yeah.
annual subscription.
And it helps with virus protection and those sort of things. It helps you with
I get-
What is the
this
portable
This is
projector?
annual money that we're looking at one-time expense as well.
So that's a repeating cost.
The hardware is not obviously portable projector, and portable projector screen.
The Power School hosting.
That's recurring,
that's
annual.
recurring. The server software, VMware software, I guess that's what I thought was liquid.
All recurring,
All this is recurring.
all of them.
Mr. Murray, is that license?
These are
that
subscriptions and
continues to recur?
licenses.
Right. So the pig section's all reoccurring. Chesapeake Bay School is reoccurring instructional fee because we pay the Chesapeake Bay. It's their teachers. The maintenance office fund, asset management fund was, let me ask that, understand.
It's reoccurring.
That's reoccurring. And the repair to the control
Wait,
head.
what's the Siemens control head? Tell them what the Siemens
The
control
Siemens
head.
control, the head end for the Siemens system that we use to control the lights and air conditioning in about half of the schools is a 12-year-old server that's on its last legs.
All
and
right,
we
so
need
that's
to- we
a
need to
one-time
replace it.
thing.
Yes.
That's a one-time thing.
That was the light contract we signed to save money and, right?
Way before my time.
And then the conversion of the
Yes, sir, I
gas
believe you're
things,
correct.
we-
That was,
I'm not that old, but yeah.
well, it was before my time. I saw that. It was here when I got it.
And the energy, and that brings us down to the energy contract. All right, so, I'm putting my 2 bits on this. As much as my easy way out is saying this is your money, you spend it, if it blows up in your face next year, you gotta deal with it, but unfortunately, the problem is, we end up dealing with it because just like the textbooks were the first ones that the call, and, we're the first ones that parents or other people put nasty comments about on social media because something doesn't get done. But the problem is, basically, what is happening is you're getting more of the funds that you asked for during the budget season by coming through and asking for them here because they're repeating things that were in the budget anyhow, I would assume. And so I guess I sort of feel like you tried to come in the back door and get more after we just finished the budget negotiations. I think we are willing to put out the 80,000 for the gym floor, we talked about that.
No, I don't think we're willing to put out $80,000. I think we're willing for the county to do it.
The county to do it,
In conjunction with, of course, with the school system to make sure.
because we're gonna be doing one too, hopefully. And then, we know the conversion has to be done. And the 1-year improvements to the heating system is a 1-year thing. But everything else in the year, except for the sunken sidewalk, which is probably a safety thing, it should be a one-time thing. The retaining wall, which is a drainage thing, is a one-time thing. But a lot of this is supplemental for the budget, so I don't know how the board wants to move on this, so let's see. Anybody wanna pick it apart,
How
do
we
the whole
package that?
thing?
I mean,
How we package that into a motion? I want the facilities to be maintained, I want the gym floor, and,
We're gonna talk about the gym floor.
so the gym floors, we're gonna talk about separately.
I mean, we're pretty much saying, we didn't know about it at our last joint meeting. Somebody brought up the gym floor in the middle school, and we said, okay, we do it. We didn't formally vote on it, but I think it was the consensus of the board to say we do it.
For over a year, 2 years probably.
Yes.
Yeah, and it, I mean, it may well be. We're taking yes for an answer. We were talking about the Lady Smith School, and somebody said, what about the gym in the middle school? And we said, yeah, we do that too. So, yes, was the answer.
Can we vote on that one separately, get this have a win off the bat?
Sure.
Do it now or do it later?
I don't mind doing it.
I mean, now how are you gonna let the county do the gym floor in the middle school?
What do you mean?
How are you gonna, the county's gonna do the floor, hopefully, for agenda item number 8
Right.
at the old Ladysmith School. And maybe we can contract with someone who can give us 2 for the price of 1 or some sort of discount. So the county would like to do it. How do we get permission from the schools to do that?
We can give you permission, if that's what you want to do, or if we can get a better deal out of it, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm speaking for myself now, I got to talk, the rest of the board has to go along with that.
And you got a majority, you think your majority
But I
would
think,
say that's okay?
Yeah, but we've got, I'd rather not make any big decisions tonight without my full board, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's not a big decision.
Pardon?
It's not a big decision, it's just, you wanna let us spend money on that gym.
Right. I said that's my opinion.
No, but just saying, there's 4, it's not gonna cost you.
Because if we can get someone who will do it, cheaper by getting both of them, that's a no-brainer.
I don't think that'd be incentive.
We're not gonna ask for any of that 80,000 to help contribute towards the cost? Are you not gonna ask for any of the 80,000 that we wanted to appropriate for gym floor to assist with the cost?
We've already allocated the money for the
For
ladies.
both floors, for both floors?
We can allocate tonight the middle school floor replacement.
What type of floor is going to be at the
Sport
Ladies
floor.
Smith?
Because of the defects in the floor, we're gonna go on top of the existing floor, was the plan.
With wood,
Yeah,
the all-purpose floor?
all-purpose floor.
Oh, okay.
It'll be a different floor than what you want, but I
But-
think we have consensus to spend the money to replace the middle school floor.
It
We're
should,
just
it
asking,
should
can
be
you give
close
us-
though, shouldn't, I would think.
Can you give us a thumbs up to go do the one, and then we'll vote now to do the middle school?
Can I help? Is nobody hearing us on this side say we're gonna pay for it?
Go ahead.
But you wanna think about it, cause you're not
No, what I
sure.
wanna do is to note that $80,000 of the 450, that's, of the money that's
We
sitting
could
out there,
say-
what do you expect us to do with that? I mean, can we?
I've already told you what I'm gonna do on this whole
I
thing, so
understand, I understand.
that's
I'm
just me.
I'm not asking you personally, that's a rhetorical question.
But here's the thing,
I would say save it for next year's health insurance, but that's my.
we need this to be done right away, because here we are almost in the middle of July, and we start school on the 1st of August.
Mr. Chairman, you asked Mr. Holman to shake his head. No, I don't think
It
it's
won't
gonna
happen
be done.
before Christmas.
Yeah.
It won't happen before Christmas.
There's not enough time to get it spec'd out, bid out, and installed by August.
Can it happen before basketball season starts?
That's December.
If you, the problem is what do you do with the PE kids?
Lots of fields around.
My question.
Pull it out of a hat, I'll try to, which I'm just saying, you're asking.
Okay.
My question is, how much money are you guys gonna keep in the rainy day, for the health insurance for teachers next year?
That's depending on what we have.
Right.
We already have 220, right?
We currently have 127,000 in the rainy day. based on this, we're asking for another 72,000, and we have 221,000 that you haven't appropriated.
That's all gonna be for health insurance.
221,000 you have not appropriated. The 127,000 is already appropriated in the rainy day. And with the health insurance, this year was our large year increase. The 3 years previously, we did not have those increases.
Can we finish that point? Can we finish with four?
Madam Chair. Madam Chair. Ms. Stevens' total that she's talked about, the various pieces and parts, total $419,000. I think that's probably plenty enough money to absorb any increase, short of $1 million that comes.
So that 419,000 is gonna be a target that's gonna be set aside just for health insurance.
Right.
So you're not gonna use any of that 419. You're not gonna use any of that 419 for anything but health insurance.
It's rainy day funds and set aside and to 2127, so, you know.
So, next year when it comes to budget season,
That's what it's gonna be, 40 or 30.
there'll be 419 sitting in there to absorb for the teachers for health insurance.
Unless there's like some major catastrophe that we can't foresee. But we don't have any intention to spend on anything else. I could say that.
Well, really? I'm having fun. And it's something.
They just said that they were gonna keep that for health insurance. 419, that's what.
Well, no, I mean, we want to keep a rainy day fund. We like the idea that Mr. Crowley proposed, worked with our previous superintendent, setting a little bit aside every year in the event that something comes up. Like, for example, if we come to you guys and say, it's textbook adoption, we don't have enough money left over from the last 2 years unspent, we got $100,000 in our rainy day fund, we'd like to put that with textbook adoption, let's do it. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say like we're gonna put all $419,000 for insurance when there are a multitude of things that could come up at any time.
I just wanted to point to you that it's merely the potential for that amount of money. Should everything go smooth and nicely and then we get bombed for health insurance costs that rise dramatically one more time, the resources available will be 419, barring any unforeseen.
And that's the 71 from here, the 100 that we don't expect to spend out of the already allocated 550.
127 that Marcia was telling me about.
No, there's 100,000 appropriated, the 661 of the anthem that you did way long ago. I think January 2015 or something, way back.
Talk slow.
Okay.
100,000 out of the 6 something.
Anthem funds.
From the original 1.9.
Yes.
Rainy day fund.
Okay, it was put into the rainy day fund.
Right.
That has not been touched. We came back again, and we were appropriated 151,000.
That's 250.
27,000 of that was put into the rainy day fund. That has not been touched.
So 127.
Okay?
That's the 127 she's talking about.
521,000 approximate of the anthem and reversion funds that were remaining, that we discussed during budget time. We took 300,000 and appropriated towards health insurance for this year. There's still a remaining 221,000 in that, unappropriated.
348,000.
Okay? And there's a 72,000 request in this 450 that would go. So the other rainy day money that has been sitting there for over a year, 2 years or so, it's still sitting there as originally appropriated.
So you're saying 348 is the number?
No, 348 plus,
348.
well, the 348 right now.
348 is the number right now? Right.
Right now.
Right.
And then the request for the 72,000.
Right here at 7:26 PM. Okay.
Some of that's not appropriated.
221 is not appropriated.
221 wasn't appropriated because that was from the 521 where we gave it 300. Okay. So, hey, can I ask a look ahead? I'm kind of like Clay, I want to read ahead. How much money are you going to have for the budget loss? Because you guys took that off saying you could cover it, the previous superintendent.
275.
That's the next item I want.
We gotta finish one. We finished the floor first.
No, because you see, well, we already finished the floor. We're going to.
No, we haven't voted on it.
They're gonna give, whenever they give us permission, we're gonna do it.
they do that now?
That's what we asked.
That's what we asked.
Can we ask that you vote to give us permission to fix the floor? We will vote now
To fix the floor.
to fix the middle school floor.
And pay for it ourselves.
Up to $80,000, not out of these funds. Out of our general budget. Are you open to that?
When will we get started on this?
As soon as that man says that we can get in the job.
Okay, if you're willing to give him the authority for that, then I'm okay with it, because I hate for us to be like, you guys go in there like, yeah, we're gonna build a new gymnasium. It's like, well, we're really wanna have a pep rally today.
No, it would have to be coordinated.
Okay, yeah, that's what I would like.
I mean,
Coordinate with our.
Maintenance department, then
We're not gonna come take your school up.
no.
yeah, I mean,
Stick a sign out
I
there.
don't want it to be 10 degrees outside. Like,
for the entire month of September, all the kids have to be outside.
And we're gonna
Because
do
we
the
kicked them
track
out of the
for the
gym.
next month while we replace the floor.
Could I recommend that we do a memorandum of understanding once we do the approval process?
Yes.
It is something that we both are collectively in agreement with, that we do sit down and just outline how we'll proceed to use those funds so that it is a
You have no
very
funds involved.
collaborative
There's no
effort.
funds involved.
Absolutely, I get that, but I
So
think.
don't say funds. Memorandum of understanding on access.
Right, and so the memorandum of understanding would outline that, absolutely. And I think that that would help everyone feel very comfortable in how to proceed.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we move into a memorandum of understanding with the Board of Supervisors in regards to the middle school gymnasium floor
And the Lady Smith.
and Lady Smith Elementary School. Thank you, ma'am.
Is there a second?
Second.
And put a sign in front of.
You should add the word replacement to that.
We have a motion and a second
Well,
over here, George.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to it.
They don't work.
I know that feeling.
Any other
Half an hour
questions?
for you, yes.
All right, call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
All right, I'll make a motion that we the memorandum of understanding with the school board to replace the middle school floor up to $80,000 in value. At,
Not to exceed.
Not to exceed $80,000 in value.
And the Lady Smith.
We've already done that. We've already voted on the right.
Well, I know, but.
Yeah, the MOU's got to include Lady Smith.
Well, that's our number 8 discussion.
We can take care of 8 now.
So we have a motion to allot up not to exceed $80,000 for replacing for the county to replace the gym floor. And then move into a memorandum of understanding with the school.
I want to amend it just to, so we're clear on the funding mechanism, that it would be out of the
General fund.
Second.
Motion is second,
Do
all
we
in
need a
favor,
second?
say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so moved. Wow, one thing done. Okay. 2 things done. Now, what about the rest of these things? We want to
Yeah, but that's why I wanted you to have 6 seconds.
Just beforehand, with you guys doing that motion for the $80,000, that may be able to increase the rainy day by another $80,000.
Oh, you're always thinking.
Well, we have $80,000.
Because it's $400,000, we've had $80,000 free up.
Sit back down, Marcia. We didn't say funds. We just told you funds didn't count.
All right.
I'm just trying to help your concern.
I'm going to suggest we come back to this nasty little multicolored piece of paper that we can't seem to get past, because as we move on, and maybe we'll, right. Yes. Anybody else want to recess?
Now, let's get this over.
Yeah, we want to get it over.
Rest is easy.
We're not used to staying all night.
All right.
Welcome to my world, buddy.
What are we on there?
Welcome to my
7.
We are on 6.
6.
Wait a minute. Did we do
Boston State, oh, I get it.
We're gonna come back to
Come back to
We want to know how much money is involved in 6 before we go back to 5. Right.
At some
We'll
point.
do math.
All right, 6.
All right, let's roll.
Further discussion on request for additional funds to Boston State funds. Reduce average daily membership. It's this one.
Yes.
I'm gonna start this out and then I'll open it up. Is that from figures I have seen, we ended up matching the budget. The amended budget for Dr. Parker and the funds you got actually were the same. So now we're asking for more. No?
This is 18.
This is from 18.
They want 275 to finish the current, or the year that's already ended. They went through that.
Right, which means somewhere there's $275,000 that was unallocated, right?
Not necessarily, sir.
This says 275.
If Ms.
For 17,
Stevens could address it, she is in the middle right now of working to try to close out the year.
Last year, right.
And working with 18 to close out, yes, sir.
Okay, let's let Steve speak, please.
Okay, so in our adopted budget for FY18, we did a budget based on 4165 ADM and not enrollment. So our budget is based on ADM. A lot of people get enrollment confused with ADM, so let me just do a quick example of what ADM is. It's average daily membership. If we open school August 1st, and there's 130 school days between August 1st and March 31st. It depends on how many days of those 130 days Johnny was in his seat. If Johnny was not in his seat 130 days, then we do not get funded for him for that whole period. So Johnny must be in a seat 131 days, it counts as 180 ADM.
How many school days are in that period?
It depends on when we start school. I just used 130.
Okay.
Right. So,
I asked the same thing.
There's
Right.
130 of a total 150.
right. So
So that was
it's
a-
however many school days we have based on our calendar from when we open up to March 31st.
To March 31st, not 21st.
March 31st.
March 31st.
That's how the state funds it. And if the child is in the seat 100% from that whole time, we get 1 ADM.
So there is a maximum number of days that a student can miss before you lose credit for that student at the state.
No, if they miss 1 day, you're gonna take 120, or 1 divided by 130, you're gonna lose that little piece of,
You have some buffer in there somewhere. I just want to know what that buffer is.
you don't have any buffer when they're calculating ADM.
It's the
They're-
average number of kids in the building that day, and then the next day. So what your average number of kids is, yeah, it's 1,100 at the high school.
How many days can the average kid miss, and you make your number?
It's not based on.
It's not based on
So it's based on membership,
It's not,
not
it's based on what they're saying.
Yeah,
It's like, it's how many
membership.
seats they're actually, like, so the, every day, how many seats Johnny's actually in every day, that's what their average daily membership.
How many seats are occupied
Occupied
every
per
day?
Right, so we can have students coming in and out, but if it's not Johnny the whole time, you're not getting credit for him the whole time. So,
It's not Johnny the whole time.
right, so you'll only get a portion of those people as they come in for 15 days, or they come in for 20 days, or 35 days, and they go out of the cycle. So that's where it was. So we budgeted on 4,165 prior for the FY18 development.
Right.
When the numbers were all done, our ADM reported to the state was 4113. That resulted in $275,417 of state money in which we did not receive.
275,417.
17. So it was budgeted, it was appropriated, it was not received, okay, by the state. So tonight, we are not asking for you to appropriate us $275,000. We are notifying you that we have that loss. It is too early for me to say where we're gonna end the year. We, as soon as we scrubbed the numbers and found out that we were at 4,113, we started taking measures of reducing spending, all those items that you would do as a financially prudent system and hold back anticipating this loss of revenue, okay? We did not get final loss of revenue numbers, actually, until the caboose bill came in June 8th from the state.
When do you expect to know
We still have July payroll to process, so typically I can get shut down between mid-August and the end of August. Mr. Finney and I have been working to try to reconcile everything, both of us being new. We are having to go back and do a lot of figuring out where we were and everything and get that. So I would say by the end of August, I will know exactly, very close to where I am. Okay?
How much does our school schedule affect the ADM?
None at all.
Same thing I asked.
If,
Can I add days that somebody could miss?
No.
That has no impact on ADM.
No impact at all.
Just the days that you're open, how many kids happen to be there?
Correct. They take our calendar.
Two things. There's the average daily attendance, which is how many students are actually there that day. That's your average daily attendance. Your average daily membership, when a student enrolls, and that would be a W in the registrar's office, or when they enroll, they establish membership once they have put their self in that seat. Now, they may be sick, they may have a reason for a day or two that they're not there. They still get credit for the membership because they have not withdrawn from the division. So they take all those students that are there on March 31st and they take the total number of days and divide that into the total number of memberships. So you then get the average daily membership, which is what the state pays us.
So if little Johnny comes in on beginning of school, okay, and he misses 50 days, but he's still enrolled on March 31st.
Not gonna get credit for that.
You won't get a whole credit for it.
You don't get all
Partial credit.
right, but
Right.
Get a piece of it.
You get a piece of
So, brings me to a question, do we know what our average miss days are per school by percentage of students for each school? Because that seems to be what's impacting your average daily membership.
Are you referencing attendance?
Attendance policy.
I can share with you that the Division of Virginia Department of Education has identified chronic absenteeism as missing 10% or more of your school calendar. So we have approximately 174 to 175 days in our calendar because we operate on a 990-hour calendar versus 180 days. Those are your two options. So a student would need to miss approximately 17 days of school to be considered chronically absent. Looking at 16-17 data, we have taken tremendous measures this year to decrease chronic absenteeism. There's a color-coded rating system that's associated with the new accreditation model that color codes you green, meaning that you have less than 15% of your student body chronically absent. You then move into yellow, which runs between 15% and about 24. Please don't quote me on these exact numbers. And then you have red, that's about 25% upward. And so last year, we had schools that varied on that spectrum. This year, pending the results from the DOE, we believe all 5 of our schools will be green. And so we have made a tremendous positive impact with the efforts we've done holistically on reducing chronic absenteeism.
Thank you very much. Mr. Thomas.
Ms. Stevens, I want to congratulate you or commend you on the fiscal responsibility, but $275,000 is a lot of money to make up.
I don't disagree with you, sir.
How did you make that up? You can't just not pay everybody. You got to keep the lights on.
Absolutely.
So how'd you make
I
that
cannot
up?
say that I've made it up yet because I'm not at the end of reconciling all my numbers.
Right.
So I'm just informing you at this point that we did have this loss of revenues. I can't tell you that in the future that we won't need to ask you, but if we batten down the hatches and basically, a funny story, but I've been without toner on my printer in my office.
Just shake real hard. It comes out. Shake real hard. Trust me.
Since the beginning of June, because I told technology they had no more money. So.
Shake real hard.
so
Just the ad light of it.
Well, and I mean, you have to
So
do
we
that.
did. We totally shut down on our items.
Okay,
In
but-
order to
but-
try to,
Kind of in your transition in and the interim superintendent's
Yes, sir.
transition in, the previous superintendent, when this came to us originally, it wasn't July, it was, the middle of June.
he was asking for an appropriation.
He was asking for
Yes, sir.
275.
Yes, sir.
Originally.
Yes.
But in a private conversation, or a telephone conversation, it wasn't private because I'm sure they're all recorded, he said he didn't actually need that money. So I don't think your countermeasures was that. I think there may have been some money left over which would have turned into reversion fund.
No, he was actually relying on me, because at first I said, I think we need to ask him for it. And then I continued to scrub, and we stopped, and I was looking at continuing and encumbering the payroll for the rest of the year and cutting down expenses, and I said, right now, I believe we can hold off and do it as a notification and try to make it through and not put the burden on you all.
But somewhere that impact's gonna eventually, it's like chickens. Sooner or later, they come home to roost. So you're gonna
Yes.
need a toner July 1st.
I-
She
I
already
do.
bought it, right, Wade?
I
She already
don't
bought a
have it
toner,
yet.
right? You bought a toner July 1st, and you're probably gonna need 2 or 3 toners this year as opposed to 2, because you're gonna
Correct.
buy last
And we
year.
had to cut our budget because I did adjust FY19's budget for the lower ADM. So I did adjust down to 4140 ADM. So we did adjust our state numbers down.
Right.
And in our budget process, we ended up having to cut 7 positions and also cut our non-compensation by 15% across the board in order to make that raise work in there. So there were measures that the school board has had to take, drastic measures.
But you
So they-
cut 7 positions.
7 existing positions that were in the budget.
That were asked for in the budget.
No.
That were in the existing.
No,
But-
in the current budget.
But that gets us to, and I had to use my phone because I forgot my power plug, so excuse my eye strain. You're reducing your instruction budget by $669,000.
Yes, sir. That is because there's a lot of instructional items that are technology according to the state accounting code that we must put in the technology code.
That's not teachers.
That's not teachers, no, sir. It could be instructional teachers, ITRTs, but that's aligning our budget properly to the accounting codes. So there's technology, classroom instruction is the way the code is. They've separated instruction. It used to all be instruction.
So
Now it's,
theoretically,
the technology items are called technology classroom instruction.
so theoretically, our 2018 budget, the one that just ended June 30th, would need to be redone. Not that you're gonna do it, or I'm asking you to. But
It's
would
on
need
the-
to be redone to match those new categories.
It's on the,
That's what you're
it's on the
asking us
agenda tonight.
to match those new categories.
Yes, sir.
That's what the budget amendment requested.
All right, so somewhere there's $275,000 that you had to find, one way or the other.
I didn't find it, I lost it, so we cut expenses.
Can I ask you this question? What was in all the years that I've been here, I don't remember this being a problem in the past. Is this the first year that this has been an issue as far as the ADM calculation?
She wouldn't know, she wasn't here, so
Right,
I
I-
asked the board.
Jeff, in your packet, I don't know whether it's there or not, there's a letter from Charlie Coley that lists our ADM budgeted and actual for 15, 16, 17, and 18.
It's the one we can't read.
It's 4,200 was budgeted 15, so it's 41, 57.
Oh, we're out of toner too.
See,
It's the one you can hardly read.
Yeah. See, and that's a question that we get, and Ms. Stevens, it's not up to you, but the ADM has gone down from 15 to 19, but the budget has gone up from 15 to 19, in spite of whatever the categories may be. Is that what you're saying, Ms. Harris? Cost of living?
And we've been given the raises, we've also been given the health insurance increases, and as you know, out of your personal budget, things continue to go up.
We had a change in ADM from budget 43 down, the downward trend 15 to 16. We only had a 10-student ADM change. And 17 was 25, and then this year was 52. So this has been an extraordinarily big change, delta.
More modest and a little easier to absorb versus this one,
Yes.
which is more substantial.
Right. So, and you can see we've been downtrending the ADM from 4,215 to 4,140 budgeted in 19.
And I appreciate you saying that.
So we've been pushing it down to 4,180, 4,175, 4,165, 4,140. And despite our efforts to push ADM down and use lower budgeted amounts, we still have students, our actual ADM is coming out lower.
So, I was going to put a bow on this.
Okay, any other questions on this? Because they're not asking for any money here, so.
I guess my question is this, if your actual
Discuss it
ADM,
further.
if your actual ADM for 18 is 4113, why wouldn't it be better to budget lower then?
I took the trend over the past 4 years ADM and came out with that.
But it's never gone
So I was
up.
looking at a trend, the average.
4140 was your trend.
4140.
Look, you can't, from these statistics, there's not enough data for us to draw a trend out of this. She's using much larger data.
It was 4156, 4170, and the 4149.
Well, thank you, because I learned a lot today. All those different numbers change, and they don't depend on enrollment, but attendance and days and all that, so that.
I can give you my exact calculation.
Yeah, it's a lot to figure out. Aren't you glad you work for us? Don't have to
I can pull the trend. I don't know if it was a 3 or 4 or 5, but it was, I did the trend.
I agree with Mr. Black in concept. If our ADM was X, and 3 months later, we're going to start all over again.
Right.
We should probably start with X.
And then next year, if your ADM goes up, then we have to come back and say, hey, I got additional state revenues, and will you appropriate it? And then we're back at the game again. Or will you
I'd rather
appropriate
have
it?
a different conversation.
I'd rather have extra state revenue at the end than having to cut toner.
I don't disagree. Those were the measures we had to take place with me coming in March 1st. I will be monitoring ADM throughout the year.
Gentlemen, I'm sorry to speak, but could we take maybe a 5-minute break and you can ask your questions, and, because we've been here and probably some people need to stretch legs, so we can come back and finish this. This one topic is just for information, not asking for funds. All righty?
I should not take my vacations before March 31st and pull my kids out of school. Is that what you're saying?
You should not pull your kids out of school for vacation at all.
I don't agree with that.
All right.
Because I got a litter of them that
And if you work for the school system, it makes it even harder for you to do that.
We're recessing for 10 minutes? 5 minutes? 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Walk fast.
So we're going to number 7.
Requests, number 7. Request for category amendments. And I take that's basically one of the different funds around.
I think she explained why,
Right.
it's all in his.
So,
And we've made adjustments in 19 accordingly.
Right, 19's already fixed.
all right.
I have,
So, we need some motion.
did you find the book?
So that's we're on number 7. Does anyone have any questions on number 7?
I guess my only concerns are we're taking money out of maintenance and out of facilities. And we're moving $115,000 into administration.
Mr. Sealing, this budget amendment request and I'll ask Ms. Stevens to correct me if I misspeak, but what we're asking is to rearrange the appropriations because of the way the funds have been spent. Previously, for example, we had discussion about technology. Well, the state mandates that a lot of things go into, with 6,800 or 68,000 technology.
Okay.
So they've had to go in. So these entries are necessary so that we have not overexpended the categories.
Those categories have to change. The expenditure types have to change.
No, sir.
This is for the full year, this year, right?
This is for 18, not 19.
So just
On that, the transfer on administration attendance and health, 150,000, is that because the health insurance increase?
No, health insurance actually comes out where the category of the employee lands. There were some adjustments in coding when I arrived that I've needed to do to get proper positions in the proper category. So this is just a cleanup of what I was delivered for our FY18 adopted budget to get everything in line to
So,
get it to where it was properly recorded and expended in the categories in which they needed to be. And I've made the proper adjustments in FY19's budget.
so then for the 18 then, because the paper had discussed on budget season was a $1 million increase in administration over the last 5 years, so that would actually be 1.1 million then? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, if it was 1 million from the prior, yeah. I'm going based on your 1 million number.
Yes, it was numbers that you gave to the paper, so.
what's in
Wait, say that again, Jeff?
What's that?
Say that again.
What I'm saying is,
And it's not administrators, so it is your superintendent office, your school board office, your finance office, your human resources office, your nurses, attendance and health.
All nurses,
your-
even the ones in the building?
Yes, your psychologist, and any needs for psychology in the sped department, and it's any of those related to those.
Third-party stuff in that as well?
Yes, sir, anything related, third-party stuff for those areas, and those are defined by the state. So it's any personnel and non-compensation purchase services for any of those areas. In addition, a public information office, strategic planning office, but Caroline does not have those offices.
So basically what you're trying to do is get official appropriation on your budget for last year because of the way things flushed out once you took over the books. and
Yes,
kind of-
Yes,
But you've already allocated this.
This is
I've
already
adjusted FY19 budget, so items are in the proper categories for the week of it.
Now, you wouldn't by any chance have the fiscal year 17 budget that you could, like, not thoroughly, but closely put together?
17's actual expenditures?
I mean, I'm not trying to give you extra work. I mean, I know you're bored in summertime.
I could, but what and that would probably, I'd have to work with Mr. Finney on that, because what I'm finding on the school records was they were on a cash basis and the accruals weren't actually booked. So if I ran a report, it would be different than what we actually entered in the CAFR with Mr. Finney.
And we do have a CAFR, which is the Consolidated Annual Financial Report.
Correct. Sorry for using acronyms. And in that,
I was lucky to know that one.
serve me correctly, it's only in there as education correctly.
17, I believe so, but I never looked at it to be able to answer that question.
I believe so. I don't believe it's listed categorically in
And
the CAFR.
I'm not asking to make more work for you. I'm asking because I took all the numbers you had, and I think you and I had this discussion. I took the numbers you had, I took the numbers from the original budget, and did an analysis in comparison of those two. And I was trying to identify some trends, and I think as Mr. Copeland, being an accountant, knows that 2 data points do not make a trend. So I was trying to get
Correct.
at least 3 so I could see what was going on, but it looks like technology is up over $1 million.
Yes, sir. When I went back to the records, I was seeing that it was about 2 million in expenditures for last year.
Yeah, I have 1.6 in the amended, and it's going
And on
to
table
11.
13, which you guys have referenced previously, it's, the technology items are lumped in with the instructional category on that report.
Okay. I mean,
So what I was doing with this was trying to avoid an audit finding. Should we overspend the appropriate categories, because you guys appropriate us by categories, we could end up with an audit finding when we go through the audit.
So we need a motion to amend, to allow the school board to amend the category budget amounts for the 2017-2018 school year.
But I have a question.
We have
Right.
to change our appropriations.
But we're moving money from transportation, operations and maintenance and facilities that haven't been recategorized. So why are we moving $135,000 from those? I understand, I'm actually understanding why you're moving it out of instruction. What I don't understand is transportation, operations and facilities.
To have the budget authority that is expected to be remaining in those areas to be able to cover the items that I have expended in the other areas. I'm trying to align the budget with the expenditures, which I have done for FY19,
Okay.
This is a reconcile.
but I'm trying to reconcile for the current year.
But there was, I guess that leads to my question, is that you had $30,000 and $55,000 on facilities that you didn't spend to maintain things that you're now moving somewhere else.
Well, that facilities money was asked to put into the reversion, so it was maintained in the reversion funds
And you spent that money.
for FY18, so the budget authorities remain.
Cyclical maintenance we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, but we're,
Which it's not in 19's budget, it is part of that
that's what you're saying, it
450
should be in your
request.
budget.
I think it's important for y'all to realize that we do the email campaign, the phone calls that we received during budget season. It was a lot. And it was a lot just to read everything that we received. Not to mention the thought and just trying to understand, fully understand so we make decisions. But we're taking $564,000 out of that budget that raises come from. Correct me if I'm wrong. So that's the category raises come from.
It's an already done deal, it's already spent, you're just rebalancing the.
I completely understand that.
Or positions come from.
It's not
But
a,
it's, you see what I'm saying? I say, hey, we're getting beat over the head and say, hey, you need to give another $500,000 for instruction. And then I see that, well, we just moved 564 out of instruction. So it's kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of understand the position that the board has, and I don't want to minimize it. But what this is really an end-of-the-year cleanup, if you will, in preparation for the audit. And the total, as you know, does not change. It's just a rearranging the appropriations so that it reflects the actual expenditures. Nobody, myself, nor Ms. Stevens were involved in the formulation of the FY18 budget. We were not here. And so we did not have control over the categories of which the funds were spent. Now, Ms. Stevens has gone back and she has realigned to make sure the expenditures are congruent with what the state has indicated where they should be. So this appropriation would put us in line.
Is this a product of, we had a little too much variation in the budget? Or this is a product of, we just spent out of category?
Or I know what, Mr. McCullough may be able to clarify this.
We have the advantage on our side.
We don't look at budget when we're going through it by category.
You don't.
I mean, what, the school board says we need $2 million more local dollars, and we're getting couple hundred from the state, and we want to do all these things. So when we developed the 18 budget, we said, I don't remember the number, 336, that, whatever I recommended, and y'all gave some more money.
Your number was
local money,
809,
and then we got the
792 less.
state money.
Right.
What we do with that, you adopt the county overall budget, you say, here's that local money, we're gonna increase you, and here's the state money we believe we're gonna get. They go back and develop that into the categories. We don't question that when it comes back to us. We have no way of knowing whether it's in the right place or not. I believe what happened was the categories were developed by a former finance director who you are all very familiar with, and we adopted those categories. They spent from those categories. And Stevens got here and said, the state says that can't be in that category. They've spent most of it out. So she's just trying to match those up. The overall amount of local funds we gave them stayed the same. It just got categorized incorrectly by school administration, and I'm not laying any blame in anybody, but I mean, that's where it happened. The board doesn't really get into that. We just adopt these categories at the end of the day, which we just did late June for 19, once we knew the state money. So I think it's not that the instruction money they asked for, the raises or the positions were wrong. They were just spending all kinds of money in instruction that should have been spent in technology. They were spending money out of this, that, and he didn't budget right what we put in reversion funds, which was a big problem we had. If you remember back when Fran was here, we had put this money in reversion funds, and he had categorized it in a different spot. We didn't realize that until he was spending it, that was screwed up. But I think this is not an issue you should see on a regular, reoccurring basis moving forward. So I think that
We agree with you.
Explain.
We agree with you, and you're exactly right. But to Mr. Forehand's point, not this year in March, but in March of 17, we got the same calls and the same email campaign. And that reflects to now. And that's all, I think, well, that's not necessarily what he was saying, or maybe it was, but that's the point. Now we're saying we're moving money around, and $699,000 or $669,000 difference is somebody out there saying, well, that's 10 teachers. And that's all, and you guys aren't explaining that at all, are you?
But they're not good teachers. Parents are good.
I can say that 85% of our budget is compensation and benefits, so the 15% remaining is non-compensation for purchase services, softwares, all of those items. So 500,000 did not impact the money was given to all the teachers, all the employees, the benefits were all given to them. So this is a shift of coding.
But my point's not for her, it's not for her. My point is for the school board. You're not having a coordinated email campaign or publicity campaign to say, we're recoding our numbers and that's why it looks like things are different, are you? Not at all. You don't even intend to. You could care less. Right?
It's their
No, that's not.
They had to approve it.
Can I mean, I know we've been here long, and we're not gonna have one of these meetings probably for a while. Can you say on the administration part, because this is the one that was reported in the paper, and when people called us, you know, I mean, it was reported by the freelance there was a $1 million increase in administration. Who is covered by administration in the last 5 years? So who is covered by administration? Because what we see is that when we look at, go to the BOE website, we see that Caroline ranks at the bottom as far as student-teacher ratio at the elementary school level. And we keep on seeing administration costs go up. So that's a concern when I see a $1 million increase in administration. So a teacher is not covered by that, correct?
Correct. So administration defined by BDOE is board services, executive administrative services, which includes your superintendent, personnel services, which is human resources, planning services, which Caroline does not have, fiscal services, which is finance staff. So you're not talking administrators, you're talking even finance staff, payroll, same with human resources. Purchasing services, which in finance is handled by, or in Caroline is handled, there's not a separate procurement office, and public information. Also is any attendance and
Mr.
health
Finney.
services for nurses, as well as psychological services and audiological services. So there's nurses in
So the
there.
$1.1 million increase over the last 5 years would have included those positions.
We hired our own PT. For one of them, we used to subcontract it out, which I think was in a different line item, and we found out we could save some money if we just hired our own, locally, we wanted to do it, and it was like, $5,000 or something we saved overall, but you change it in the line item, so it looks like administration's going up by $50,000 or $60,000.
Where would that be?
And there's been some adjustments in there, just my position only. I am finance director. So in the past, from what I've seen, it's been coded between instruction and administration. According to the code, I'm administration.
Sure.
So you're that big raise.
No, sir.
You're not a new position, you're a replacement.
Correct, but if it was miscoding
Miscoded between.
between two categories,
Then you would have to.
now you're getting proper coding. So, I don't anticipate coming back to you in 19.
Can you do something?
For this adjustment. I'll pull the capper and see what we can get.
I'd appreciate it.
But table 13 should have it reported off.
17, I think would be a worry, because the audit's already done, and the auditors have issued a report, so there's only got any audit finding.
No. I'm not, I don't have anything to do with the audit or anything like that. All I wanted was another data point based on the new categories. That's all. So then we can all see, it may help you guys too, we can all see trends and things like that. I'm not critical, I want to see where we're
I'd like to
going.
know what 17 did too, but, I think that, that's a can of worms, A, you don't really want to open, and B, if you want it for educational purpose for your
Right.
own use, then that's okay, it's just not going to be something you really want to disseminate, or spend a lot of money out of your
Right.
department to go after.
I think you're just gonna have a bad trend, because if it was coded wrong in 18, it was coded wrong in 17, 16.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking, you would uncode it and make it right.
He not only wants you to dig it out, he wants you to fix it.
Should we worry
I don't see that.
about now as to what we have to do with this motion?
Those who don't recall history are doomed to repeat mistakes, so we need to worry about it. Yeah, that's on
We're
there.
gonna get to that.
Start with your FY 18, table 13 reporting and move forward.
So I need a motion to allow the county to,
Okay.
add the category as presented for the fiscal year 2017-18.
What, that's you, man.
I'm waiting for 17, I'll be happy to approve when I get 17.
We gotta have 17 on this.
I'll make a motion that we approve the categorical adjustments as.
Can I have a second? I'll second. So we make the budget balance out by doing this. So, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Aye, table vote. Mr. Thomas?
Nay.
Mr. Sealy? Nay. Mr. Black?
Aye.
Mr. Forehand? And I vote aye.
Let me say one other thing. This is a school board nightmare. When I first found out about this, I was almost ready to commit a homicide. Not a suicide, but a homicide. First of all, we lost the ADM, which was bad enough. And then we found out there's overspending and so forth. And I knew what was going to happen. I said, that means we got to go back to you guys. And I'd rather take on Muhammad Ali right now than to come in.
I bet you could beat him now.
I couldn't deny it, but no, seriously, it's an embarrassing, listen to me, it's an embarrassing situation for us, and I admit it.
And it is for us also when the audit was done, and we had to sit there and listen to the auditors just this past year. And my bent on this is we weren't new to this. My feelings were really hurt, and I hate to say I told you so, but we had a very good finance director who retired, who kept trying to say something is not right, and we get a nasty letter saying that you're picking on our employee, and we were trying to help, so just remember that in the future. Because now I think you do have, we've got a good team here with these two, and things should go smoother in the future.
Can I, Madam Chair, can I tell Mr. Spalding something? I think I'm the only one in the room who has experience with the school board who has overspent their money. My very first year on the board, they overspent by over $500,000. Nobody lost their life. It was probably a little bit of angry words going back and forth. But always remember, and even now when we have sometimes heated discussion, we're all in this together.
Right.
We all want the same thing. I still want 17 numbers, but that's another story. Remember that. Well, don't feel like we can't come back.
Don't pick on my finance director.
We don't want to chase her off, we want her to stay.
We got a spot in our finance department. But remember that. I'm serious about the first part.
You've already taken one for a technician, so no. I mean, you pull a Spotsylvania on us.
We got good health insurance.
All right.
Guaranteed we won't go up. We'll take care of you.
I am very trusted with Mr. Finney.
We'll take care of you.
You're in good hands with Mr.
I'm
Finney.
sorry. You need a little levity. Everybody's too serious.
We've already done 8, yay. 9, possibility of the joint financial management measures.
I'll start off. The board is in the process of exploring. We've got an RFP out, and we're working on a contract for a new financial software to lead the system that the county's been on a long time. And as you well know, we're on 2 separate systems, and probably part of some of the headaches we've experienced over the last couple of years have arisen out of that. When y'all write checks, it doesn't update our system. So we were actually on one system. Y'all would still have your own general ledger, you write your own checks and do all your own approvals, but once those checks are posted on your system, if we're on one system, they would update the general ledger of the overall county general ledger and then count codes where we look at them, and would probably, to me, provide some additional trust in what we're looking at amongst the boards. It was one of the things we did combine in Middlesex while I was there. The schools came and asked for $300,000 to $400,000 worth of software, and the board would do it, so you need to get on our system. So we were just exploring, would you be interested in doing that before we sign a contract with a company and leave you out? I mean, because obviously it would be an expense to the county to add the schools in, and so we felt at least we needed to, the board did, and y'all can certainly speak up because y'all are the ones that brought this up when we talked about contract negotiations. But that's sort of where we're at, and we believe one system that ultimately updates all the way to the final general ledger would be an improvement.
And I would think it would make our 2 financial managers working together a lot easier if they were both on the same system. I don't know, I'm not an accountant, so I wouldn't know, but I would
When do
think.
you have to know about that?
I wouldn't expect you to make a decision tonight.
No.
But, I mean, we hope to bring something back to the board on August 14th now, that's the next day, August 14th.
I would highly encourage us as a board to lead in that direction, absolutely.
My only question is, and I'm sure the answer will be yes, but I'm sure they offer training.
Oh, you have to pay for it, right?
Right.
We wouldn't do it without
Yeah,
training.
Okay.
well, that's a gift.
And would it be possible for both of them to train together? Because I think that would be more beneficial.
Well,
I mean,
What cost?
go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead. Isn't life wonderful?
it is.
I just love it.
I'm glad I'm off tomorrow.
Are you?
I'm going
Oh, it's
camping.
Friday, yeah. Going to Montana?
yeah, no.
Or is
Going
it
camping.
something? No, okay.
I just want to say from my perspective at the schools that I'm familiar with some softwares also in implementing softwares. And softwares, as Mr. Thomas and I had a long conversation on, their software is built for different things. So school payroll is a unique experience on its own. I have private sector experience, school payroll, and I can tell you, school payroll, schools don't know how to do payroll. Basically, private sector makes it very easy. Paying contracts out for teachers and everything is quite hard. I believe Mr. Black can vouch that Spotsy has announced several times of them implementing new payroll system, and he's still getting his paycheck off the old system. It's going over a year and a half at this time. So just from that end, I think that I'm not against it by any means. That I'd like to ensure that there is a product, because if you tell a commissioner of revenue or a treasurer's office or utilities department they have to have a software that's geared towards the schools, you might get a different answer. So,
This is something we'll have to talk about.
Absolutely.
And of course, you
Right.
have to have the information on some of the things. for
Right,
that.
so, and there's also things that I spoke with Mr. Cully that, even not being on the same system, that you can have access to the same system. I could feed journal entries, a lot of times it's really format, you can feed journal entries in, so the county staff can go ahead and approve it, so where it would keep, work off of their end. So there's different ways that we could, even if we didn't go on the same system, that we could enhance with access to a new system that you guys go on. So it's certainly a great discussion to have.
And just so the school board will know, there are several localities in the Commonwealth that have joint school and county systems.
Absolutely.
When I spoke to Mrs. Stevens before, I mentioned my previous employer of PeopleSoft and Oracle. Both of those had, the city of Virginia Beach, where your previous superintendent came from, had schools and county. Henrico has schools and county. There are some advantages. We may even look at a hybrid, like you have your own HR system and feed that data into our financial system, which we share. You can have a separate one. So I really want to give you, schools are like, not quite like police departments, which are hard with different schedules.
Absolutely.
But you've got different contracts, and I was a little bit familiar with that, so I shared those with Ms. Stevens. But it's something you should consider, and we'd like you to consider, and it would be a benefit for all of us.
So I would suggest that you two gentlemen get together and pull in whatever staff and catch them up on whatever we're looking at. We can push it back. We don't have to have it all.
Henrico had Oracle. And Virginia Beach used Lawson. And DC government had PeopleSoft.
All right.
I sold all three of those.
Yeah, the larger ones.
Hmm?
The larger ones.
Yeah, the ones that
You
required
couldn't
a,
bring PeopleSoft in Carolina.
we could. Couldn't afford it.
I was gonna say.
We couldn't implement
You
it,
got
but
double
we
or triple
could.
your finance staff.
Just sit in a file drawer somewhere.
It's not a scalable issue, but a smaller system geared for that.
Are we ready to move on to 10, or have we, so we covered 10? That has to do with the gas. That's on 5, right? That's part of 5?
It appears to me that for that, the meter is set at the high school and transportation, and they have funds that they need to hook those two up. One of which is replace the parts you took out to get the boilers to burn propane at the high school. You know, put that back together and install a line that gets out to the road.
No, it's just a matter of tying in from where the meter is to where the
farm is.
we stubbed it out knowing we were gonna hook up for the gas. It's just where the gas company could finally set the meter, and there's probably 30, 40 feet of pipe that has to be reworked to make that happen, so.
And the burners have got to be changed.
Yeah, I mean, again, we've got most of the parts. The kitchen equipment is the only thing that.
Yeah, new kitchen. And then the same thing at transportation, it's got to do some work.
Transportation, the equipment there is older and it's not convertible.
Right. It's got to do
So
some
we
work.
have to replace the hot water heater and some of the heaters.
Thank you for the update. All right, number 11, discussion of joint meeting with presentation of school demographics and theater pattern analysis study.
That's a draft we got a couple meetings ago. That Mr. Parton said he worked on.
September.
Just need a date in September if possible for both boards to meet jointly and hear the consultant's presentation.
September.
So if you get back to Mr. Cully with a couple of dates, I will work with your board members, and then I'll run them by my board members, and we'll see if we can come up with a date for that presentation. Now, 12A, norms for meetings and work sessions. Because I am one of the chair people who do not like things put on my desk when we sit down for a meeting with 5 minutes to look at it unless it's an absolute emergency. I understand, Mr. Spillier, what you're saying is as far as wanting to know or get the agenda ahead of time. I'm shuffling papers tonight because I was out of town for 2 days, so I came home to this afternoon. So I understand, do the school board members get a copy of the agenda ahead of time? Yeah, so, okay, good. So, I think we need to continue to do that, to send the agendas out in time, have everything in ahead of time. What else do we want to set up as norms?
Madam Chair, the establishment of norms, as I stated earlier, impacts how we live and work together. Norms are read at the beginning of the meeting and agreed to by all participants. Now, examples of norms include things such as everybody agrees to listen attentively, practice courtesy, respect all opinions, model transparency, honor confidentiality, and refrain from judging. These are just a few norms. But the two boards could get together and agree on a set of norms. For example, the Diocese of Southern Virginia has norms that are established. The senior administrative team that meets weekly has a set of norms that we have in front of us. And it just keeps on the forefront of everyone's minds that we're all in this together and we're working together and we're going to respect one another. We may disagree, but we're going to disagree that we disagree, and we're going to still continue to move forward. And that's sort of the background. This came from the school board vice chair, and I would be more than happy, I think she could probably enunciate or articulate this much better than that. But that was her request. She unfortunately had a previous engagement and couldn't be here tonight.
If I may add, we did it as a board when the previous superintendent came on. And we had a meeting. It took about an hour, but it made the rest of the meetings go a lot faster. And that was, it was a great use of just an hour's time to get together and hash out basic stuff like we're going to show up on time, we're going to be respectful, we're all going to be there.
We have our norms that we can print and have a template.
And we're not saying you guys should have one. We're just saying that as a collective whole, we should have agreed upon philosophies, the way that we treat each other.
I mean, put anything on paper, unfortunately, can't change human beings, we all have a tendency to sometimes have our good days and bad days, but we all need to have our expectations, so, I have no problem with forming a committee and writing up some goals and everyone can abide by them. And we read things when we have public hearings and comment sections. So, we can work on this. Mr. Thomas, did you have your hand up?
I didn't have my hand up, but, my people are from Carolina. I was kind of raised in Carolina. I thought we were doing that already. Were we disrespectful in today's meeting?
Mr. Thomas, I have not by bringing this out suggested any of that. I was just merely conveying what the vice chair has asked, and as Mr. Kelly has explained, and Mr. Copeland, the school board had done that, and it has a very tendency to reduce, it makes your meetings more efficient, to be quite honest with you.
It works so well that we decided to do it every year, but pending the new superintendent search, we're gonna wait till the new one comes in and revisit it.
No, you
I
do
just
it
thought it was
now,
courteous.
make he or she abide by it.
You want them in the process because that way they get a better understanding of what our expectations are and policies and procedure and.
Are these norms gonna include like outside of meetings?
No, I'm gonna beat you to death outside of you. I'll be real nice to you here.
But it was
home,
like,
political letters home.
case in point, like when I first started on the board, like in.
Board of Supervisors, horrible kids, send us home.
Just to reflect what you guys said, like when someone calls me and would say, my kid's not getting a textbook in class, and my first thing I would do is I would jump and I would, call the school or shoot an email to the principal or the teacher and be like, so when we sit down and talk about our norms, it's like, we establish what the policy and procedure is going to be for questions or concerns within the school division. What's the established protocol that we have? So if you guys get concerns about us, you know where to send them. We get concerns about you, we know where to send them, or whatever.
So,
And if you want to adopt one for outside of the meetings, then that's obviously something that we'd be more than happy to discuss.
I think that would have to be improved. If we go down that path.
Because I got plenty of letters that I called teachers back and they didn't want to talk about it. They were told they had to call us or had to send us email. So if we're going to adopt something like that, I want to adopt it across the board because the letters sent home with kids and the emails sent to parents and the phone calls that go home about how we're not treating the school board properly, it is a little over the top as far as I'm concerned. So if you're going to talk about abiding by some sort of quote-unquote norms, then the norms can't be when you're face-to-face with us, but it's okay to send letters home with the parent, with the kids about Board of Supervisors, the phone calls that go home, and then having the teachers told that they've got to come to meetings or send us letters, because what are we doing? I mean, you can't have it one way. It can't be.
I agree with you.
But that's
what
been
we
the
should get
norm for the
together.
last 2 budget cycles, the formulator columns with this not filled out or this left blank, and when you call the parent or the teacher, I was just told to send this to you. I mean, I called a bunch of people. I sent back a bunch of emails, and when I finally got people on the phone, like, oh, it doesn't really matter to me now, I was told I needed to send this. So if you're gonna set up something along those lines, then that's gotta stop.
Well,
Because
that
that's
has
one
to
way.
be part of the.
Right, the agreement is, we're not gonna do business that way. So that's what we're trying to do, is get a better procedure for working with you together.
I thought we were being polite, that's what I thought we were doing all
This is the
along.
best meeting I've ever had with you guys.
What?
This is the best meeting I've ever had with you guys. I think we've.
Yeah, been around.
The longest too. Well, longest meeting, yes.
Yeah, we got the most done. You can't get everything done in an hour.
It took us half a night, though. Great.
This ain't even late yet, what are you talking about?
No, that's fine. This is on.
Yeah, I think we should pursue it, and whoever's, wants to.
That might be a good topic for a 2-on-2.
Yes, but that haven't occurred in a long time.
Yeah.
Thanks. We all,
You can
don't
vote.
go there, don't go there. We all, okay. 12B, technology education discussion, CT, sorry.
That was mine.
Career technical education.
Yes. I don't know how much y'all read about this subject in the United States, and I don't know, but it's becoming endemic, and I work in a construction and a trades field, and it is something we see firsthand, not that far from here, and it's something I experience on a contractor basis for my home. Like I said, it's definitely in play for my work life. And I think there's a lot of opportunities there. And my only comment, and if we want to discuss it, is just I think we can do more, I think we can do better than what we do right now. And I would just, it's completely up to you, but,
Well, you won't get any disagreement from anybody else here, because we've gone from literally zero at emphasis on CTE to spending a good deal of time, my personal time, many of them folks have been personally involved in promoting CTE, especially just with the electrical folk. It has to be disseminated to a larger group, but we need a way to have those larger groups help us educate. Now,
as in MCD?
Similar to MCD. Right, we also, but we need other trade groups. One of my clients is an association of electrical contractors. They were the first ones who came to the school, and I talked to Josh Just and one of the assistant superintendents, and we all had a nice chat about it, and 2 students came out and ended up going with them, and then that just exploded into MCD and that whole project. We just need other groups similar to the Association of Electrical Contractors, if you could, because they have their own apprenticeship program. And the ABC, or AGC, the Association of General Contractors, I don't know whether they do or not. We haven't heard from them.
They're just an association, they don't develop anybody.
Well, there needs to be someone like that for us to reach out to integrate with the school system. If you'll know that CTE, to have a particular teacher teach everything, they really have to be a master at it all. And that's just physically impossible for a person to do. They can't be a master electrician and a master plumber and a master carpenter. There's not enough time in their life to do that. They wouldn't be able to teach. So, we have to have those other availabilities. If we can't provide for them in the school, we have to be able to reach out into either the business community or the trade communities or other communities to bring them in.
Well, we got you the masonry guy that was doing work at Germanna.
Awesome, love it.
I think that's.
Love it.
I can.
But I think the point is, are you incorporating those things we found?
More than you can possibly imagine.
Okay.
We are shifting the whole focus of, it's not just going to college anymore. We're preparing students to be the profile of the graduate. If you want to start looking at that, that's the whole reason for profile of the graduate. We want to have a student who's not necessarily going to head for college. They're going to have an understanding of what's available in all realms.
Part of my concern is that we do spend a lot of, we do have current programs. We have a CNA, we have a culinary, we have some sort of building, I see shed being built downstairs.
Yes, we do.
Automotive,
Small engine repair.
what's going to be automotive next year?
Okay, so that's,
Got a metal shop?
and my concern was that, all right, we're using CNA as an example. I know that there's been a request. You can be 16 and have a GED and go be a CNA. And I don't personally see a big value in having 2 people on staff to teach something that's going to keep someone below the poverty line. At the same time, we can teach someone a trade for the same amount of money, same number of students, possibly even more, because it's not regulated by the state, and teach someone to be in a career path that can have them do very, very well. There's, HVAC, electrical is underway with MCD, pipe fitting.
You won't get any disagreement.
So,
There has to be a
That's more
start.
based on student interest and.
We have nobody that wants to be an HVAC. We can't hire an HVAC
Right.
teacher.
Well, neither can I go service my house, and that's the problem.
The kids don't want to sign up for
But
it, so that's the
even
problem.
if you have 10, I mean, does anybody want to go, if you say, hey, you want to be a CNA, you want to go dump bedpans, the answer you're going to get is, for $8 an hour, the answer is hell no. do you wanna go fix air conditioning units for $25 an hour? You've just got some potential. And, you know, that's, again, it's not a complaint, I know it's a difficult process, it's an expensive process, but
It's a mindset shift, and we're making that shift
Okay.
as we
I want to
go
encourage
along
that,
each day.
and I think there might be some options in the coming years to help facilitate some things, but that's,
If you have contact with many of the other trade organizations and they have apprenticeship programs, send them to us.
Please.
Send them. I mean, drag them. If they tell them that they can contact somebody and they don't, drag them down.
Have you ever thought about like a joint, like you guys, the governor's school is like joint counties, have you ever thought about like maybe contacting a different school system like a King George or?
Yes. As a matter of fact, when we talked to Germanic Community College, they were wanting to try to bring in students from different schools, because I talked to somebody at King George, she's on the school board in King George, and she's an architectural engineer. And she wants specifically the same thing you're talking about, and because they have students who want to do some particular aspect that we teach. We were trying to organize for them to come here, provide their students. So, yeah, it's happening, and the need is there, just in the little microcosm of what I've been exposed to. And we're moving in that direction. We have no choice but to.
I mean, in our county where Sean and I teach, all the kids who are in those vocational, they're bused, a lot of the programs are bused at one central school to all the 5 high schools.
And that's a y'all have a technical center,
High
right?
school, but I mean, it might be something where you get together with.
That makes all the difference in the world, yeah.
Yeah, because you cut the costs.
And if we could piggyback onto y'all's system that bus the people there for a career and technical program to technical school, I wouldn't waste a moment's time discussing it with you. I'd be pushing a kid on the bus.
But you know, John's right about the mindset, because you used to, and maybe even when you guys were in school, if you took a shop class, that was just something to get out of another class with. In other words, you weren't thinking about, well, I can take masonry and be a first class bricklayer and this sort of thing and so forth and all, you know. And if it's getting the kids to think that way, that's the main thing. It's school, the guidance people, parents, everybody involved there. I can't go to college. We can't afford it though. I got to look for something that I can make a living in, and not making $7 an hour. Pardon?
You ever have like guests, career?
Yes.
Yeah.
We've had people come in and talk. We had a guy from B&B Electric. Matter of fact, he got a group of about 30 students and he talked to them, and he was looking for specifically at-risk students. And so he could explain to them what he does, the living he earns, and why mathematics is important. Why is it important to learn how to do geometry? Why is it important to learn math analysis? You don't have to be calculus, you don't have to learn all the higher maths, but you need to know how to manipulate fractions, you need to know how to manipulate formulas, and you need to know about angles and weight and forces. Those are all important. And kids, the emphasis hasn't been to say that you need to know this because one day you're going to end up out in the workforce and it's going to really mean something to you. And the things are, the electrician came out to my house to fix my HVAC unit. Yeah, a lot of it's he needs to know exactly computerize what's going on in my system, because the systems literally talk to themselves now. And so it's not just manual grunt labor anymore. It requires a serious brain to get in there. So yes, it's happening. It's not something that can be shed a light on, because there would be 1,000 little lights and it would drown out everything else we're doing.
Well, we keep our eyes open when we hear from new businesses and
Absolutely.
send anybody
Yes.
that's interested
Yes.
your way.
And as a point of reference, using electricians as an example, MCD is partnering with you, with the schools, for a very good reason. They can't find enough electricians in Richmond.
Right.
There are 10,000 union electricians in DC, and there are 200 that are unemployed, and most of those are not employable. There is a huge sucking vacuum sound.
And they know
Those
it.
jobs,
in the
there's not
trades,
skills to
they're-
fill it.
And that, they make $48 an hour as an electrician in the, which,
96,000 a year.
Yes.
which Fredericksburg is in that jurisdiction. So we're talking about Spotsylvania County is in the DC jurisdiction. So we're not talking about extensive travel. We're talking about the next county up, they could be literally be making $48 an hour to bring an electrician. MC Dean is doing it, they're non-union, they have their own apprenticeship, they need people too, and
And it's
The
gonna be
apprentice, the
technology
apprentice
part.
trainer is a good friend of mine, as a, you know, so.
and the
yeah.
market's only looking, there are more people getting out of the trade than are getting in. And every trade is following that model.
But if we need the help of the business community of those trades to let the kids know, so the more input we get from them and the education of those kids, then the greater the swell will be in the number of attendees in the program.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. That brings us back to 5, appropriation of funds. Do I have anyone on the Board of Supervisors as to what we'd like to do, because we requested $450,000?
As an interim measure, I'd like to allocate or approve allocation of $97,000 for the retaining wall, the sidewall, the projector system, the control heads, and the conversion of the transportation facility. Those are all the capital projects, and my proposal, my assumption is we'll discuss the other items.
High school too, yes, high school and transportation.
It only says transportation, that's
It's $15,000.
doesn't say anything about high school.
There's two items down there, it's the 15, whatever it is for transportation, and then the 50 for the high school.
That falls with you, Charlie.
I'm sorry, say that.
I'm sorry, it's not the conversion of the high school, it's the $15,000 for transportation, the $50,000 contingency for the middle school, and whatever that was for the contingency and leave.
Well, the contingency was if we pursue the performance contract, right?
Correct.
That's still TBD.
Can we ask for the rainy day fund to go with that?
The money's not going away yet.
They just haven't passed it. They know why it passed. You guys now, you understand? Yeah, basically all one-time capital projects. That's true. Now it's on
Here.
minus the general. Correct.
What are you saying? Say what you want again?
$97,000, which includes the retaining wall, sidewalk repair,
Right.
the projector and screen for the mass training.
Projector and screen for measuring. Come on, you kid.
They have no way to, when they bring all the teachers or kids into that gym, they need to be able to.
Yeah, if they go to the middle school auditorium, there's TVs all over. It's like 4 TVs. 4 games rooms.
We can get an extra 50.
Oh, so you can put a bouncy house up and show a little back of bouncy house.
That's what it's for. The conversion of the transportation facility, and that should add, and the control head, that should add $97,000.
Is the technology, all the technology stuff recurring costs?
Yes.
Not all of it.
I'm sorry, I'd added in the facilities fund.
No, I'm not doing facilities. That's, taking that out of one-time money and the next year it's not gonna be there.
But the 97 that you just made includes
What's-
facilities.
Yep.
Can we, I mean, we don't know what Mrs. Stevens is gonna find, in August, September, when she gets with Mr. Finney to discuss the budget and their 275 that they made up. I have no idea, where we are. I mean,
No, it's just too early to know.
What's-
The county doesn't know where we are. It's our-
yeah, what's absolutely critical on here? The
The gas line.
We need the retaining wall so we can, keep teachers. That was basically what we got before.
Gas line.
$50,000 to lock in the interest rates when the gas company's coming.
Is that with the gas line or the energy stuff?
That's their performance energy contract.
Anticipated down payment for financing, because I'm sure rates are gonna go up.
We've got Davenport coming back to the board in
Right.
August 14th with growth rates. We put an RFP on the street.
So that can wait.
So we wanna wait till we get the report from Jeff.
They did an RFP, so we'll have rates.
That'll tell you the interest rate that
Yeah,
you
we can have the rates.
Yeah.
Then you can decide if you're doing it or not.
97, we have that.
Back to 52 out. We can
52.
agree on that.
We're talking 45.
45. Get those other ones underway.
I'm all for it.
Further discuss everything.
It's gonna be more than 45, what are they thinking now?
It's taking out 52 for the facilities,
Up to 50,000, whatever.
facilities repairs.
Oh, I
maintenance
didn't have
repairs.
that, but you got 30, 45,
Those are the third.
the control.
Yeah,
tab.
44.7, minus the 52. Madam Chair? 44.7.
I'm trying to calculate.
I know, I'd like more, but
All right,
How
so
much
we've
is
got
the-
the
how much is the retaining
retaining,
wall?
900.
plus
All right.
800.
900, 800. Okay.
Projector.
Projector's 13,000.
13,000.
The, control heads,
30,000.
is 30,000.
That's 44.7 right there.
And the conversion of the transportation facility is 15.
That's 59.7, 60,000. Oh, we didn't ask about that. 59.7.
59.7, Mr. Corian.
2 years.
And we'll do the floor.
No, we're taking the floor out totally.
Yeah, it's just separate.
Right, but
That's
I
not
mean,
even in there.
that's,
The total
I
should
know,
be-
but still, they.
Total should require should be 370, that's the 450, because the floor is gone, right?
Yeah, floor's gonna jump up.
But the 80,000 in floor goes to insurance automatically, into that.
No, it just stays unallocated.
I mean, allocated.
We're just gonna wait.
Well, it'll be part of the 348 that's unallocated now, right?
No, it's part of this.
If you don't
So-
appropriate it.
Unappropriated,
Not appropriated.
right, that's what we're calling it.
Right now, we're dealing with money that was set in the contingency.
This is the
$1
five,
million.
this is what's left of the $1 million, this is the
Correct.
450.
450. So you removed 80 of their request by taking care of the floor, but we haven't done anything with it. Still,
But that 80, we're gonna say goes over to the unallocated part. Or you just wanna leave it in here and say it's left in the 450, whatever's left in the
that's
450?
how you want to treat it. We haven't made any decision on that.
Okay.
So what do you look at?
What's the total down?
59.7.
That's
Say,
what exactly right is 59.7.
I'd like to amend my motion, $59,700 to complete those out of the Anthem contingency funds for items listed.
Right.
The,
Wade is still there. Wade is gone. Do I have to get
And
this?
we will relook at the.
I mean, I guess the technology people are gone, but how important is the technology stuff for the one-to-one conversion?
Sir? I didn't hear you.
Well, the
How
software,
important
I
is-
mean,
how
those
important
things
is
are licenses. So those are things that they have to pay annually to Microsoft to keep operating. So all their laptops and desktops all around the system require an annual subscription.
Well,
That's
that's-
how they support their software.
That's just the first one though. The other one,
I'm just saying, that's one of them I remember him saying.
Power School and Zendesk or something else. One
Those
of the
are all
servers he said he
annual, I
needed.
think those are all annual subscription
They're
based
licenses.
costs. They got removed out of the operations budget.
Power School pretty important now.
Yes.
Yeah,
All that's
for admin,
every
it's super.
every one of those.
Scheduling, discipline.
But we're paying for this with one time.
Yeah, but I'm saying like everybody
My
in the system.
understanding, they were in the reversion anthem funds last year.
Last year.
Yeah.
See,
They
so.
weren't removed out of the operation.
Power, do you guys know what Power School is?
Of course not. But here's the problem.
Yes, we do.
Here's the fundamental.
So bad.
Here's the fundamental, we're in one-time money. It's not in the operations budget.
Right.
It wasn't last year because it got paid out of reversion funds. It's not this year. So when this money's gone, you're gonna come to us and go, we're $1 million short because we've been using reversion funds for all this, for all these operation expenses, and we're gonna go, we don't have it. You're gonna go back to all the parents and have them send us letters because we don't have the money to give you to pay for the stuff that we've been paying for one-time money. And I don't know how to get out of this.
Retaining off money.
But no, we're stuck in
But that's
this,
what
we're stuck in this
that.
over and over, and we're not solving our way out. We did big teachers' raises at $650,000, and you're leaving, and you're telling me you need $450,000 or $350,000 in actual reoccurring costs that we're not taking care of. So somewhere there's gotta be a break in the cycle, and you go, you know, we've gotta take care of this. And we're kicking the can down the road. That's my frustration, is we're not solving the problem, we're compounding the problem.
This silly thing, point taken, but we do have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Do we, can,
Yes, Mr.
discussion if I may.
Discussion.
Is there a
Do
second?
I need a second?
We're in Robert's Rules of Order, that is a second.
Yeah.
All right.
We're not voluntary.
Excuse me?
If he makes a motion and someone else speaks or asks some questions about it, we're in Robert's Rules of
You
Order.
already started.
Sorry.
No. That's not correct, but we'll work on that when we get to
Somebody make
Norm.
a second.
But I was a parliamentarian, that's not correct.
That's not correct.
The question was, how quickly do I have to get the technology stuff in for you guys to be ready to go for the next year? I mean, I'm sure Microsoft is they're gonna say, well, your license agreement's out, you can't upgrade to 11.A, whatever. But that's not a big issue with me.
These certain items,
Yeah,
I can't tell you for the Microsoft license when that's due.
I don't think
but
that's a big one.
I have seen purchase orders for the Power School hosting and the softwares that are 7/1 effective dates, annual license.
We're running some sales guys, like I say.
We normally try to align them with the fiscal year.
Fiscal year,
Yeah, the contracts.
30-day late time. They really don't ding you if it's 45 days, do they?
Probably not.
Want to pay for a level?
No, you ain't going back.
No, Microsoft, I do know that
Oh,
Microsoft
Microsoft will turn your stuff
Microsoft
off.
will turn you off.
Right.
I do understand that.
Day one. They will turn your stuff off. That's the
Your
way.
license is your license.
But we can do technology in our August meeting. So we're good. We need a second first.
We got a second. Jeff, second.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor.
So we're gonna consider all the other ones.
We're gonna do this, yeah, at a later
The
time.
August meeting.
I just
We
need
all
the
eat
technology.
this, you'll eat this horse to death, okay. All right. So we have a motion on the floor,
When do we do the thing?
$59,700 to do the basically the one-time things.
Cool.
And a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, so moved.
Let's from these existing.
For these existing, for these lists.
And the school board meets August 13th, the Monday before the board. Can you check either then or before with Wade and see what the critical nature of his software technology is?
You want to check with him, is that what you're saying?
I asked, could you check with him, but I don't have a problem checking with him.
I'll be back.
I don't want to violate the protocol, but
Send a letter, you can ask them.
could be real.
Do I have a motion?
I talk to anybody, you know that.
Any further discussion, Mr. Forehand?
We have a letter in to the board, the school board, regarding a sign in front of the old C.T. Smith Elementary. Y'all would please consider that and give us a response on that.
Can you stop calling it C.T. Smith?
I'll be glad to, as soon as we're allowed to renew it.
Or at least part of it.
Floyd, there's some
part of
people on our
it.
board who want it to be CT Smith.
There's some people in our community who would be storming the walls if it was named C.T. Smith.
I know it's a contentious issue.
Well, you could name your part of the building, that's what we need to name, let people know where our park is.
I will add that we were required to put up some sort of sign when we had the hearing, the SCC hearing, because there was no sign on the building at all.
Yeah.
And we were having a hearing there as a state corporation commission, and they go, what's the sign? And that's, we had to scramble to get that put up to hold that hearing for the Aqua rate case. So that was the rush that was why the county shoved the sign, because they came down and visited the building before they agreed to hold the hearing there. And so that was.
Have you seen the letter?
Yeah, did you send it?
Oh, okay. You'll be receiving a letter. My apologies. Just asking if we're permitted to put a sign in the Lady Smith Community Center in front of the old C.T. Smith.
What would you have on the sign?
Lady Smith Community Center.
What we call it. It's all of it.
Well, but something we gotta check into, that's the deed that was signed over to us by a family. And, you know, that can get kind of
Yeah,
squirrely.
we got deed
Yeah, we have to
restrictions.
So let us check on that before we.
We read the
Yeah,
deed, if
but-
you want a copy of it, we got a copy.
But you know, if someone leases an office, in an office building, you usually get to put your sign out for part you're leasing.
Right.
And so I would think you all could still refer to it as however you wanted to. I'll let you fight that battle, but if we're paying to lease the section and we're holding community there, is why we
And we've had to deal with some of those deed restrictions before, which weren't necessarily legal.
Yeah, there's, I mean, CT Smith.
Yeah, there are some that
All right, so you'll be receiving a letter.
fundamentally violate.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Equal protection under the law.
All right, any other discussion? May I have a motion to adjourn this
Second.
continued meeting? I have a motion by Mr. Sealy, a second by Mr. Graham, all in favor, say aye.
All right.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.